solar panel operators pretty concerned right now.
Yeah, it definitely is nerve-wracking. You're trying to keep your head above water and get your bills paid and stuff, and to have in the back of your mind this feeling that you're thinking, what could happen next?
It's a funny thing about the future. You don't wake up surrounded by jetpacks and robot dogs. The real future kind of sneaks up on you, until one day you find yourself plugging in your crossover like it's totally normal. Introducing the 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. It's gas, it's electric, it's the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid crossover. Lease an Outlander PHEV for as low as $259 a month for 36 months. Certain states qualify, or get 0% APR for 60 months.
He's a NASCAR champion who's faced thousands of drivers. She's a world-class swimmer who stared down the best in her sport. But for both of them, the most challenging opponent was
PE blood clots in my lung. It was really scary.
A DVT in my leg.
I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
My doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Xarelto is a latest generation blood thinner that's proven to treat and reduce the risk of DVT and PE blood clots from happening again. In clinical studies, almost 98% of patients on Xarelto did not experience another DVT or PE.
Here's how Xarelto works.
Xarelto works differently. Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of blood clots. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
You've got to learn all you can
to help protect yourself from DVT and PE blood clots. Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
I didn't know where I was from ethnically, so we sent that sample off to Ancestry. My Ancestry DNA results are that I'm 26% Nigerian. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about my culture. I put the gele on my head and I looked into the mirror and I was trying not to cry because it's a hat, but it's like the most important hat I've ever owned.
Discover the story only your DNA can tell. Order your kit now at AncestryDNA.com.
Take home 6 of our famous yeast rolls for free at Golden Corral. Hurry in for beef brisket, ribs, and more 7 nights a week, just $13.99. And take home 6 yeast rolls for free. Yeah, baby, Golden Corral, your choice rules.
What's the law on what you can and cannot say on a billboard?
3 Billboards is now nominated for 7 Academy Awards.
You go, girl.
Including Best Picture of the Year.
This time, the chick ain't losing.
3 Billboards, rated R, now playing.
Every night in America, people make something for dinner. But some of us make something much more.
Mom would be proud.
With Blue Apron, any night is a chance to see what cooking can do.
It's frustrating when you can't see clearly. Imagine there were wiper blades that did more than just wipe away the rain. Rain-X Latitude Water Repellency 2-in-1 Wiper Blades. Our revolutionary blades include the water-beating magic of Rain-X and works by applying the repellent directly to the glass. So water magically beads up and rolls away while you drive. Compared to traditional wipers, the difference is amazing. That's why Rain-X just won the prestigious Product of the Year award. Rain-X, outsmart the elements.
19 minutes past the hour right now, and this morning there are new reports of frustration, anger, annoyance in the West Wing. CNN sources say President Trump is fuming about the Russia investigation and venting about firing the man supervising that probe, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Another day, another major development, it seems here, right? So I want to walk with you here through the flurry of headlines this past week. Sources say The president tried to fire Robert Mueller in June, even though the White House denied it for months. The president also wanted to fire the deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, but he didn't follow through because the FBI director threatened to resign. We also learned that the president sat down with McCabe and asked him about who he voted for in the 2016 election. McCabe later called the question, quote, disturbing. In the meantime, Attorney General Jeff Sessions was questioned by the special counsel's team for several hours last week, making him the first member of the president's cabinet to be interviewed, which brings us up to date here. Robert Mueller wants to talk to the president now about why he fired James Comey.
Okay, all of those major developments have Democrats defending Robert Mueller and his investigation. CNN's Caitlin Collins is live in Washington this morning. Caitlin, Democrats are doing more than just defending. They actually want to protect the special counsel, right?
Yeah, that's right. They're seeking to ensure that he will be protected from being fired by President Trump by including some legislation in these ongoing budget negotiations that would protect him from being able to just be fired by Donald Trump at his whim. Now, this is legislation that was first brought up actually in the late summer, early fall, when there was rampant speculation that the president was considering firing Mueller, but it died down after not only the president, but his aides insisted that he was not considering it, that it wasn't on the table. Even the president's lawyers going as far to say that it wasn't on the table. We now know, because this bombshell New York Times report that has been confirmed by CNN, that that's not the case. The president was actually considering firing Mueller, and that's why these talks are starting back up on Capitol Hill. Now, Senator Mark Warner is a Democrat. He's the leading Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is conducting its own investigation into this Russia probe, and he had to say this about making sure that Bob Mueller cannot be fired by the president.
I think if the president had gone through with this or tries to go through with it on a going forward basis, we're into uncharted territory. We're into the real question of the fundamentals of our democracy. Are we still going to be a country where rule of law pervades and that no one, even the president, is above the law? My hope will be come next week that the Congress would take up bipartisan legislation that was around last year that would protect the special prosecutor from these kind of arbitrary actions.
Now, Senator Warner has certainly been someone who has not shied away from criticizing the president. But back over the summer, when these rumors were first starting up, even Republicans on Capitol Hill were saying that the president shouldn't even come close or think about firing the special counsel. Now, the president has largely ignored this report from the New York Times so far, only saying that it was fake news and not commenting on it any further. But he returned to Washington last night from Davos, Switzerland, and there's certainly a chance that he could bring it up. He's got his State of the Union address on Tuesday, so we'll be waiting to see what the White House has to say about this.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks very much. Of course, the Republicans would have to go along with that, and who knows where that would go. All right, thank you.
All right, still to come. You know, every state in the country except Hawaii is dealing with this deadly flu. We're talking about 40 kids, nearly 40 kids who've almost died. Well, the CDC says it's going to be around for many more weeks. Our chief medical correspondent has some really important things to say to you about this. Dr. Sanjay Gupta coming up.
Plus, a damaging claim against Hillary Clinton. Did she save a staffer's job after he was accused of sexual harassment?
So Dave here is taking the family up to the lake for the weekend, but without the white knuckles this time. Because his new 2018 Ford F-150 has Bliss with trailer coverage. It's Brainiac smart. Not only does it watch your F-150's blind spots, it's got your trailer covered too. Just another reason why Ford F-Series is America's best-selling truck for 41 straight years. This is the new 2018 Ford F-150. It doesn't just raise the bar, pal. It is the bar.
When you have a cold, pain from chest congestion can make this feel like this. All-in-one cold symptom relief from Tylenol, the #1 doctor-recommended pain relief brand. Tylenol.
Who can help you undo the damage done by fire or water? Search no further than the experts at Service Master Restore. We help people go from disaster to done. Service Master Restore.
I'm really big on knowing why I'm doing something based on some kind of science. Up till about 8th grade, I was actually very overweight, and the only way it was going to change is if it started with me. I want to be able to train as smartly and as accurately as I possibly can. And I'm always looking for those kind of things that can help me progress forward as just a healthy person and as an athlete.
Know your body. Understand your DNA with 23andMe. Order your Health Plus Ancestry Kit by January 31st and get $30 off at 23andme.com.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I go with a Noro.
COPD tries to say go this way. I say I'll go my own way with a Noro.
Once daily Anoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Anoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro.
Ask your doctor about a Noro.
Get your first prescription free at Anoro.com.
Van Jones, tackling today's complex issues with perspective you can't get anywhere else. Tonight, Van sits down with Sean J.C. Carter, the one-on-one interview you don't want to miss. The Van Jones Show premieres tonight at 7 Eastern, only on CNN.
You know, one day a client said to me, you would only understand if you've been overweight. But I was overweight. B-Balanced Hormone Weight Loss Centers taught me that the weight wasn't all my fault, that by balancing my hormones, I could naturally lose 60 pounds. Maybe you've seen our commercials. Maybe you've wondered, could this really work for me? So many of our clients are sleeping deeper, feeling better moods, and losing weight. What would it be like if you could truly be balanced?
Fill out a hormone questionnaire online today.
Show me the Olympic winter games like I've never seen before. Xfinity X1, yeah, I always know the score. Triple courts in 4K, looking so sick. Streaming live on every screen, every win, every trick. 2,000 hours of coverage, get your mind blown. 50 Olympic channels, yep, you're in the zone. And if there's something that you want to see, pick up that voice remote, just say, show me. Experience NBC Universal's coverage of the Olympic Winter Games like never before with Xfinity. Proud partner of Team USA.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-213-8000.
27 minutes past the hour. So good to have you here this morning. I'm Christy Paul.
And I'm Martin Savage in for Victor Blackwell.
So even on this trip to Davos, Switzerland, the president just could not get away from the Russia-related headlines.
2 sources tell CNN that President Trump wanted Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller fired last summer. He was stopped when White House counsel Don McGahn threatened to quit. And now a top Democrat in the Senate says an action like that would lead the country into uncharted territory. Joining us now to talk about all of this is Errol Lewis. He's the CNN political commentator and political anchor for Spectrum News. And Sarah Westwood, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Great to see you both this morning.
Good morning.
Sarah, let me start with you. White House staffers have repeatedly denied that firing Mueller was ever an option that was being considered by the president. Now they're being pretty much quiet. The president called it fake news. Some have said this is game-changing. Where in that broad definition is this real event? Is it significant, or is it just, well, he didn't actually do it?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. You know, we already had an understanding that President Trump is frustrated with the Russia probe. He's always questioned the legitimacy of the investigation. And recall that back in June, this was before Ty Cobb came into the White House to help the president navigate this. So Trump was still publicly pretty adversarial toward the Russia investigation. He was still describing it as a witch hunt, still pushing back pretty forcefully against the fact that this was going on at all. And at the time, there was reporting that discussions had taken place about potentially firing Mueller, but that aides persuaded President Trump not to, and the issue was never pursued further. Now, this New York Times report suggests that President Trump maybe weighed it more seriously than just a casual conversation. But either way, this doesn't move the needle in terms of how we always knew President Trump viewed the special counsel.
Also, an interesting thing about the timing. I mean, the president's on his way to Davos. The news suddenly comes out. He had a very strong message he was going to say economically about the U.S. Now, suddenly the conversation's diverted. Let me ask you this, Harold. Senator Mark Warner said that a decision like this would lead the country into uncharted territory. Is that really true? Or would loyal Republicans defend the decision? And as the president said, that there were actual reasons he thought about getting rid of Mueller, and part of that was he felt that there were some conflicts of interest.
Well, I think it's legally uncharted territory and politically uncharted territory. The last time we saw a special prosecutor fired or attempted to be fired by a sitting president that prosecutor was investigating was Richard Nixon, and it didn't work out so well for Nixon in the end. We don't really see presidents taking that kind of heavy-handed action. I'd also like to say, though, I mean, the fact that the president, we now know, I think it's been pretty much confirmed from all these multiple sources and the non-denials from the White House, that he gave an explicit order to have the special prosecutor fired. Now, the fact that his subordinates talked him out of it or sort of threatened to quit or didn't carry out his order in some ways is not really quite the point. When you have a specific intent and you give the order, then you have taken an action. And I think that's the question that has to be asked to President Trump. Why did you take this action, and what does that really mean?
Sarah, Mueller knew of this some time ago. It wasn't like he just got the news this week. What do you think his reaction would be, and how would that possibly impact his investigation?
Well, it depends on how aggressively Mueller is pursuing the potential obstruction of justice line of inquiry in this investigation. That's something that we're hearing more and more that Mueller is interested in, not just in this one incident, but in the removal of James Comey, in the White House's attempt to craft a misleading statement about the Don Jr. Trump Tower meeting. These all add up to a picture of a White House that was potentially resisting the investigation. And it's one reason why I think a lot of President Trump's advisors are nervous about this meeting that he has upcoming with Robert Mueller, particularly if the president is placed under oath. Because Trump and most White House aides, you talk to them, they're pretty confident that there's not going to be any collusion findings, but they're not as confident that Mueller's not going to find any carelessness or any resistance that White House or campaign aides took earlier on before they realized how serious this investigation would be. And they think that potentially this interview with President Trump could put him in peril.
I want both of you to actually listen to what a top Putin critic, a political rival, said of Russia's election meddling.
I have no doubt that the Kremlin did everything it could to influence these elections, and that there were indeed hacks on the DNC and of emails. This is something they've been doing inside this country for a very long time. I have also been a victim of such attacks, fake documents. This happens all the time. But honestly, I really doubt it actually had any impact on the presidential elections. This is a good thing about the authoritarian leaders. Whatever they do it ineffectively. Of course, they are trying to stick their noses into elections. They will continue trying to influence situations using propaganda and stirring up conflicts in the US and Europe. But you shouldn't overestimate the level of this influence.
So what we get out of that is, of course, he agrees that the Kremlin is trying to hack elections, but he downplays the impact of their efforts, at least so far. And I'm wondering, Errol, could that really catch on here? Is it a possibility that maybe Republicans will sort of pick up this kind of message?
They've given no signs of doing so. The Republican Party and the Republican leadership in particular has quickly migrated to from this never happened to, yes, the president probably did it, but so what? I think it's a helpful perspective, though, to hear from Mr. Navalny that what is really at stake here is the credibility of the system, that what Putin is trying to do is, maybe sway the election, and whether or not it's decisive and whether or not it was decisive in 2016 is a separate question from whether or not they are routinely attacking our system. That's the point that I think Americans need to focus on more. And it's a very tricky and somewhat subtle kind of a thing to convey to people. But it's like, look, just because it didn't make a decisive difference in 2016 doesn't mean this is not a serious, serious problem.
Right. Yeah, I want to pivot real quickly here before we run out of time to another story gaining traction, and that's candidate Hillary Clinton, 2008. It's being reported she saved a staffer accused of sexual harassment. And I'm wondering, Sarah, does that do damage to her image?
I think in a way it does for people who still hold her up as this icon of the movement that we're seeing right now, but for a lot of conservative critics of Hillary Clinton, this sort of reinforces what they already believed about her, that she's not a genuine supporter of women's rights in this area because of how she behaved in relation to her husband's accusers in the 1990s. Obviously, that was a different time, totally different set of circumstances, but this incident does reinforce that perception that her critics already had of her.
Sarah Westwood, Aaron Lewis, good to see you both, and wonderful to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
So we want to talk to you about this flu season, because the question is, has it even reached its peak? The CDC isn't sure yet. They say the worst may not be over. We have more on the other side of this break. Stay close.
I don't have my wallet, so.
Perfect. You can send a digital payment.
I don't have one of those payment apps.
Perfect. You have a US-based bank account, right?
I have Wells Fargo.
Perfect. Then you should have Zelle.
Perfect.
Perfect.
The #1 mobile banking app just got better.
Does your coach use Zelle too?
Of course.
Another way we're building better every day.
From 5-star gourmet restaurants to laid-back fish shacks. From a meal with an epic view to an intimate culinary affair. If you can't find something great to eat in the Florida Keys, you can always order online. The Florida Keys and Key West.
The closer you get to home, the more you know the commute is worth it. For all the work you pour into this place, you sure get a lot more out of it. You and that John Deere tractor, so versatile, you can keep dreaming up projects all the way home. It's a longer drive, but just like a John Deere, it's worth it. Nothing runs like a Deere. Now you can own a 1E subcompact tractor for just $99 a month. Learn more at your John Deere dealer.
As long as there is fear, as long as there is curiosity, as long as there are undiscovered corners of the earth, and as long as there is willingness and desire, then you are capable of more. The all-new BMW X3, capable of more.
Your body was made for better things than rheumatoid arthritis. Before you and your rheumatologist move to another treatment, ask if Xeljanz XR is right for you. Xeljanz XR is a once-daily pill for adults with moderate to severe RA for whom methotrexate did not work well. It can reduce pain, swelling, and further joint damage, even without methotrexate. Xeljanz XR can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections, lymphoma, and other cancers have happened. Don't start Xeljanz XR if you have an infection. Tears in the stomach or intestines, low blood cell counts, and higher liver tests and cholesterol levels have happened. Your doctor should perform blood tests before you start and while taking Xeljanz XR and monitor certain liver tests. Tell your doctor if you are in a region where fungal infections are common, and if you have had TB, hepatitis B or C, or are prone to infections. Xeljanz XR can reduce the symptoms of RA, even without methotrexate. Ask your rheumatologist about Xeljanz XR.
Why are we taking him?
I have no clue. We're just TV doctors.
If this was a real emergency, I'd be freaking out.
But thanks to Cigna, we can do more than just look heroic.
We can help save lives by getting you to a real doctor for a checkup. Nurse, this thing's defective.
Please don't touch that.
We are the TV Doctors of America.
Together with Cigna reminding you
To go, know, and take control of your health.
Doctor poses.
Cigna, together, all the way.
Patrick woke up with back pain, but he has work to do, so he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Aleve, all day strong.
I remember when I first started going, just watching the sunrise and thinking, oh my gosh, can't imagine doing anything else. The earlier we start, the better, so the fish get out of there to be in the market by that night. To keep track of the fish, I definitely need to be on my toes, so sleep is pretty important. You don't realize it until you stop at the end of the day how tired you are. Hard work pays off, and I know it's a cliche, but it doesn't feel like work if you love what you do.
So this year's flu season, it is on track to be the worst in nearly a decade. The CDC says there is, and I want to get this quote out exactly, many more weeks of the virus to come. This flu has hit every state and U.S. territory. More than 36 children have died from the flu, just the flu this year. So I talked to CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, to help understand what's happening and how we can protect ourselves. So let's talk about the CDC numbers. Nearly 40 kids have died. That's scary for parents.
I mean, it's frightening. I mean, you and I both have young children. It's really scary. And, you know, if you look at the last couple of years, you haven't seen these kinds of numbers where this many kids have died. It has happened in the past, and it's worth reminding people how deadly flu can be, especially in young children, the elderly, people who have some sort of underlying medical illness. It's a potentially very problematic disease.
Well, and there are some reports of kids and adults who it started as the flu, and in one case it ended up as septic shock.
Yeah.
In another case it ended up as pneumonia.
Yeah.
Is flu kind of the precursor?
Yes, and this is a really this is a good point. So you can get what's called a viral pneumonia. So this is the flu virus causing a pneumonia. But what happened in these cases often is that if you look at the child, they actually had the flu, they felt better. They actually seemed to be recovering, and then it came back. And what came back is what they call the secondary infection, or a bacterial infection. And that's a good thing for parents to think about. If your child seems to have recovered and then all of a sudden gets sick again, that is a flag that maybe they need to go to the hospital, go to the emergency room and get care, because that's when it becomes really problematic.
The other thing that took note for me was the acceleration of this infection. There were adults who died within 24 to 48 hours from showing signs. So with that said, how do you know when you have to go to the hospital? Well, at what point?
Yeah, and it can be, it's easier said, obviously, as we're talking about it here, but for people who are starting to develop breathing problems that are just out of the ordinary. I mean, people get congested, they get a lot of that when they have the flu, but if you're starting to have breathing problems, if you have chest pain, that's usually an indication that somehow the lining of the lungs have now become infected as well. That's a real problem. And then this other sort of point in children primarily, but adults as well. If you've recovered, I'm on the upswing here, everything's going well, and all of a sudden it hits me again, that could be a sign that you have a secondary infection. And sometimes that's what happens. They thought they were fine, and then all of a sudden something came back and it hit them hard.
So at that point, if something happens within, what, a day or two?
Yeah.
You need to probably go to the doctor?
Or even within a few days. It could even be 3 or 4 days. If you go to the doctor, it could be that you now have a bacterial infection. Remember, with viral infections, there's not antivirals the way that there are antibiotics. There are antivirals out there. They don't work the same way. If you have a bacterial infection, that is something that can be treated.
So there's a report too that an 8-year-old died, and he got the flu shot.
Right.
So people are probably, if they haven't gotten the flu shot yet, is it too late to get it, and is it effective enough?
The flu season is expected to go into April this year, so you know we still got several weeks of this. We may be sort of at the peak of this. We're not entirely sure yet. People are always a little bit skeptical of the flu shot. I know that from having reported on this for years, and the flu shot's never 100% effective. This year it's particularly low. It's about 30% effective. But look, it's better than nothing. And not only could it decrease the chance of you getting the flu, it can decrease the chance of you getting as sick if you do get the flu. So it can decrease the severity of symptoms as well. That's helpful. So it's not too late to get it. I still recommend people get it. We have probably at least 2 to 3 more months left of this flu season.
And lastly, we've been hearing reports that hospitals are overloaded and urgent care centers are overloaded. How confident are you that the healthcare system can handle all of this?
Well, I think the vast majority of people who get the flu, they don't need to go to the hospital, and they shouldn't go to the hospital. Because look, hospital is a place for sick people, and if you don't even have the flu, you might get it by going to the hospital, because that's where this virus is going to be circulating. I think that right now as things stand, the hospital system seems to be able to handle it. We've had systems in place where they have to set up ancillary structures, outside tents and things like that. But I think it's worth reminding people that if you're not having some of these symptoms of the increased difficulty breathing, the chest pain, the sort of return of symptoms after you thought you were feeling better, you probably don't need to get a visit to the hospital. You probably don't need to be tested to see if you have the flu even. You need to take fluids, you need to rest, and you need to not go to work or to school, because that's how you really start to control the spread of this thing.
So hopefully that addressed some of your concerns and questions that you might have had there. And thank you, of course, to Sanjay.
Cheap solar panels from Asia, they have fueled an industry's growth here in the United States. But up next, why that boom could be about to go bust because of something the Trump administration's done.
Take home 6 of our famous yeast rolls for free at Golden Corral. Hurry in for beef brisket, ribs, and more 7 nights a week, just $13.99. And take home 6 yeast rolls for free. Yeah, baby, Golden Corral, your choice rules.
It's 6 a.m. 40 million Americans are waking up to a Gillette shave. And at our factory in Boston, 1,200 workers are starting their day building on over 100 years of heritage, craftsmanship, and innovation. Today, we're bringing you America's #1 shave at lower prices every day, putting money back in the pockets of millions of Americans. As one of those workers, I'm proud to bring you Gillette quality for less, because nobody can beat the men and women of Gillette. Gillette, the best a man can get.
Feel a cold coming on? Zicam Cold Remedy Nasal Swabs shorten colds with a snap and reduce symptom severity by 45%. Shorten your cold with a snap with Zicam.
The growing impact of artificial intelligence came as no surprise to us.
I think it's important for public safety that we, governments keep a close eye on artificial intelligence.
We showcased examples of its use in government in 2015. Years ago, we discussed happiness as a measure of effectiveness for governments. Incredibly innovative.
There is no way countries can do it by themselves.
And while the media woke up to Bitcoin last year, we'd already explored the impact of cryptocurrencies.
It's one of the most important innovations in computer science, period.
Where did we take the lead on these issues and others? At the World Government Summit, here in Dubai.
Tinnitus affects millions of people, and in a recent study, sufferers tried lipoflavonoid for 60 days as directed. Those who completed the study reported a 32% improvement in their symptoms. Try lipoflavonoid 60-day challenge. If it doesn't work for you, you'll get your money back.
She was the victim of the most bizarre kidnapping in American history. Was she a hostage? Or was she a terrorist? The radical story of Patty Hearst premieres Sunday, February 11th at 9 on CNN.
How do you become America's best-selling brand?
Want to see a trick?
You make it for those who need an extra hand.
Moxie.
And a little heads up.
You okay, bud?
That's Ford, and that's how you become America's best-selling brand. Now you can lease a new Ford Escape for only $199 a month. That's just $199 a month at your local Ford store.
Medical malpractice is the 3rd leading cause of death in America. 250,000 people, just behind cancer and heart disease. This is the equivalent of a full jumbo jet crashing every day. And we aren't even talking about serious, life-lasting injuries and injuries at birth, like cerebral palsy and brain damage. Hospitals and doctors have insurance for these mistakes. You only have a limited time to make your claim. Don't wait. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
President Trump, the State of the Union address. Special live coverage starts Tuesday night at 5 Eastern.
Closed captioning brought to you by Angie's Boom Chicka Pop Whole Grain Popcorn. Today is your day. Crush it.
Today is your day. Crush it. Angie's Boom Chicka Pop Whole Grain Popcorn. Boom!
Well, 49 minutes past the hour right now, and President Trump's decision to slap high tariffs on solar panels, that could have a big impact on that industry as a whole.
There are reports that indicate that thousands of workers could lose their jobs this year. CNN's Dan Simon spoke to some workers to gauge the mood in the industry.
The solar industry has been hot.
thanks in large part to cheap solar panels from Asia. Jobs have been plentiful. But now the industry is bracing for a slowdown and even possible layoffs.
What did you think when you heard about it?
It's nerve-wracking. Yeah, it definitely is nerve-wracking. You're trying to keep your head above water and get your bills paid and stuff, and to have in the back of your mind this feeling that you're thinking, what could happen next?
Shiloh Wernick saw a promising future in solar. Now he's not so sure.
I've personally been working in this industry for 9 years, and to figure out a whole different career path would be very nerve-wracking for me and my wife.
The uncertainty, a direct result of President Trump's new 30% tariff on imported solar panels, a move he says designed to help American manufacturers getting crushed by inexpensive imports.
So that we'll be making solar products now, much more so in the United States. Our companies have been decimated, and those companies are going to be coming back strong.
But the Solar Energy Industries Association says it will hurt consumers with higher prices and could cost 23,000 workers their jobs this year.
What Trump did by passing this tariff is raise renewable energy rates across the country, period, full stop. It's a great headline, it's a promise on a campaign speech, but ultimately I think the consumer will be hurt.
Jim Peterson owns one of the biggest solar companies in the nation. He says the move runs counter to decades of political messaging.
And what concerns me is we have leadership in Washington that talks a good game about driving energy prices down, about becoming more self-reliant in energy, and what we just did was tax it.
John Orfali has made low prices his selling point. Just look at the company name. He says a typical system in the Bay Area might cost $20,000, but with the added tariffs, expect to pay at least $1,000 more. Praying may not help, but spreading the gospel of renewable energy might.
There is quite a lot of concern about the tariffs, but the solar industry will survive this because it's just a beautiful thing. It's a great thing getting free energy.
And in the short term, solar businesses could actually see a spike in sales as consumers look to lock in pre-tariff prices. But long term, a cloudy future may be on the horizon. Dan Simon, CNN, Pleasanton, California.
And stay with us, still to come.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone. Please exit.
Thank you all very much.
You all. Thanks, everyone.
President Trump respectfully dismissing the White House press there. We take a look at how the phrase, thank you, seems to have taken on a whole new meaning, some say, for the president.
Stay with me, Mr. Parker.
When a critical patient is far from the hospital must come to the patient.
Stay with me, Mr. Parker.
The AT&T network is helping first responders connect with medical teams in near real time.
Stay with me, Mr. Parker.
Saving time when it matters most.
Stay with me, Mrs. Parker.
That's the power of and.
Why make something this intelligent when it can get by on looks alone? Why create something that stands out when everyone expects you to fit in? It's simple. You can build a car, or you can build a Cadillac.
Come in now for this exceptional offer on the Cadillac CTS. Get this low-mileage lease on this 2018 Cadillac CTS from around $469 per month. Visit your local Cadillac dealer.
The Shape of Water is now nominated for 13 Academy Awards, including Best Director Guillermo del Toro and Best Picture of the Year. The Shape of Water, rated R, now playing everywhere.
What's the value of capital? What's critical thinking worth? A basketball costs $14. What's team spirit worth? What's it worth to talk to your mom? What's the value of a walk in the woods? The value of capital is to create not just wealth, but things that matter. Morgan Stanley.
Mother Nature. Nothing smells greater than the great outdoors, especially when you're in accounts receivable. Only one detergent can give you a sniff like this. the irresistible scent of New Game Botanicals laundry detergent. Bring the smell of nature wherever you are.
It's frustrating when you can't see clearly. Imagine there were wiper blades that did more than just wipe away the rain. Rain-X Latitude Water Repellency 2-in-1 wiper blades. Our revolutionary blades include the water-beating magic of Rain-X and works by applying the repellent directly to the glass. So water magically beads up and rolls away while you drive. Compared to traditional wipers, the difference is amazing. That's why Rain-X just won the prestigious Product of the Year award. Rain-X, outsmart the elements.
Van Jones, tackling today's complex issues with perspective you can't get anywhere else. Tonight, Van sits down with Sean J.C. Carter, the one-on-one interview you don't want to miss. The Van Jones Show premieres tonight at 7 Eastern, only on CNN.
This is the all-new Chevy Equinox. It offers rear seat reminder, built-in 4G LTE Wi-Fi, Apple CarPlay compatibility, and Teen Driver technology. It's crazy. Now to get all these features, you'd need all 6 of those crossovers.
That's insane.
Yep, and you still wouldn't get everything that's in this Equinox.
6 cars in one.
Current qualified competitive lessees can get this all-new 2018 Chevy Equinox for around $199 a month. Or get $2,250 total cash allowance when you finance with GM Financial. Find new roads at your local Chevy dealer.
How do you become America's best-selling brand?
Want to see a trick?
You make it for those who need an extra hand.
Moxie.
And a little heads up.
You okay, bud?
That's Ford, and that's how you become America's best-selling brand. Now you can lease a new Ford Escape for only $199 a month. That's just $199 a month at your local Ford store.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
There is no harm saying thank you. In fact, probably your parents taught you to use that phrase to be respectful and courteous.
Here's the thing some people have noticed. When the president uses the phrase, he kind of does so to dismiss the press, and it takes on a whole new meaning. Here's CNN's Jeannie Moos.
Let's all be thankful.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
That there's a nice way to say scram, demonstrated by the president in Davos, Switzerland.
But the money is on the table. Thank you very much. Are you taking the money away now? Are you taking the money now?
We're heading out. Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Remember when thank you
Thank you all very much.
was an expression of gratitude? Now it's more attitude.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Translation, thank you, get out. At a recent cabinet meeting,
Thank you very much, everybody.
Would you meet with Kim Jong-un?
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
it took President Trump 8 thank yous to get rid of the press, though sometimes when his own people are thanking everyone out, it's the president who can't stop answering.
Please exit.
not
Thanks,
at all.
everyone.
Did you talk to him
Thank you,
about it?
everyone.
No, I didn't, but I'm not at all concerned. Thank you all very
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Please exit.
In a second, you'll see a White House aide in black try to get the reporter in orange to button it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Very proud of
Mr.
you.
President, are
Thank
you concerned about what the Attorney General told the special counsel?
Please
No,
exit.
I'm not
Thanks,
at all
everyone.
concerned.
At one recent photo op, the president got fed up with thank yous.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Just Caucasian or white countries, sir, or do you want people to come in from other parts of the world where there are people of color?
Out, he told CNN's Jim Acosta. The worst is when you get your very own thank you with your name attached.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you. Jim, thank you.
Sometimes it's a wonder they bother with the euphemistic thanks when the press is in the Oval Office endangering table lamps.
Whoa, hey. Easy, fellas. Hey, fellas. Over here. Fellas, easy.
At least the press can't call this job thankless.
You guys are getting worse.
Thanks.
Thank you all very
Thank you
much.
all. Thanks, everyone.
Jeannie Moos, CNN,
Thank
Out.
you.
New York.
Jim, thank you.
The latest high-profile, wealthy, and politically connected man accused of sexual misconduct. Preposterous, says Steve Wynn, the Vegas hotel and casino billionaire.
Steve Wynn, I want to thank you. I want to thank the whole group. The money raised.
Closely tied to President Trump as finance chairman of the Republican National Committee. Democrats are demanding the RNC return any campaign contributions
mounting evidence of possible obstruction of justice against the President of the United States.
President Trump ordered White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Mueller last June.
Fake news, folks. Fake news.
It's not a bombshell to Mueller. I think that is obstruction of justice, and I think that that is grounds for impeachment.
There have been failures at MSU.
Asking for an immediate congressional investigation into USA Gymnastics and the U.S. Olympic Committee.
They knew about what was going on, and it went on for too long.
Good morning to you. Welcome to Saturday. I'm Christy Paul.
And I'm Martin Savage, in for Victor Blackwell.
Good to have you here. So it was just a week ago that the president was singing his praises. And now Steve Wynn, this wealthy casino mogul, who's also the RNC's finance chairman, is in the middle of a sexual misconduct scandal.
According to the Wall Street Journal, dozens of women say that Wynn forced them to perform sex acts when they worked for him. This morning, he is calling those claims preposterous. The board of directors of Wynn's Resorts says it is now forming a special committee of independent directors to investigate these allegations. Here's CNN's Miguel Marquez.
Preposterous, says Steve Wynn, the Vegas hotel and casino billionaire, to charges that he ever assaulted any woman. The blistering statement from Wynn himself after a bombshell Wall Street Journal report that a manicurist in 2005 was forced to lie on a massage table naked while she claims Wynn raped her. The Journal also reporting Wynn paid the manicurist $7.5 million in a settlement. Wynn, in his statement, said the instigation of these accusations is the continued work of my ex-wife, Elaine Wynn, with whom I am involved in a terrible and nasty lawsuit in which she is seeking a revised divorce settlement. Elaine Wynn's attorney told the Journal that's just not true. Wynn, the latest high-profile, wealthy, and politically connected man accused of sexual misconduct. The Wall Street Journal says it spoke to more than 150 employees, and dozens reported a pattern of sexual abuse by Wynn. Wynn, in his statement, said, "We find ourselves in a world where people can make allegations regardless of the truth, and a person is left with the choice of weathering insulting publicity or engaging in multi-year lawsuits. It is deplorable for anyone to find themselves in this situation." The allegations now reverberating in politics, where despite a history of supporting both parties...
I'm friendly with Bill and Hillary, and I'm a friend of Donald Trump's. I haven't given a dime to either one of them. And I haven't decided who I'm going to vote for.
Wynn is now closely tied to President Trump as finance chairman of the Republican National Committee. Democrats are demanding the RNC return any campaign contributions from Wynn, much the way Republicans did with Harvey Weinstein. Allegations against Wynn are now being used to put pressure on the Republican Party. The Democratic National Committee saying today the RNC have helped fund the campaign of an alleged child molester, blindly supported the GOP's attacks on women's health, supported a president who has been accused of sexual misconduct by over a dozen women, and now they remain silent amid sexual assault allegations involving Steve Wynn, one of their party's most senior officials. So last weekend, the president had to stay in Washington, D.C. because of the shutdown. He was supposed to be at Mar-a-Lago at an RNC Trump victory campaign fundraiser. One of the co-hosts of that fundraiser, you guessed it, Steve Wynn. Now, the president sent a video instead singling out Steve Wynn. CNN obtained audio of that video.
Steve Wynn, I want to thank you. I want to thank the whole group. The money raised. You're really special people. Thank you very much. We'll see you the next time.
Now, in fairness, the president did mention several other people in that video, but Steve Wynn was certainly among them. And coincidentally, Steve Wynn turned 76 today. Back to you.
The other big political headline this morning, Democrats looking for a way to protect special counsel Robert Mueller after reports that the president tried to fire him from the Russia investigation. CNN's Caitlin Collins is at the White House. And Caitlin, how exactly are Democrats looking to protect Mueller?
Well, they're proposing this legislation in these ongoing budget negotiations that are going on Capitol Hill after they passed that short-term spending bill. But this legislation would protect the special counsel from being able to be fired by the president at his will on a whim. It would create some sort of protection, some sort of safety net, if you would. Now, this isn't the first time that we've heard this from Democrats. They actually proposed it back over the late summer, early fall, when there was speculation that the president could be thinking about firing the special counsel, but it died down because not only the president but his aides, his lawyers insisted he was not considering firing Robert Mueller. It wasn't even on the table, and we now know with this bombshell New York Times report that the president actually had not only made the decision to fire Robert Mueller, but had ordered the White House counsel to do so, and only backtracked because the White House counsel threatened to quit over it. That it actually was not true. The president was actually considering it. Now, Senator Mark Warner is a Democrat. He's the leading Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he actually had something to say about this after the New York Times published this bombshell report.
I think if the president had gone through with this or tries to go through with it on a going forward basis, we're into uncharted territory. We're into the real question of the fundamentals of our democracy. Are we still going to be a country where rule of law pervades and that no one, even the president, is above the law? My hope will be come next week that the Congress would take up bipartisan legislation that was around last year that would protect the special prosecutor from these kind of arbitrary actions.
Now, the president is pretty much alone in denying that this even happened with the special counsel and the White House counsel. His lawyers have largely been silent on this, and the president's only comment was that it was fake news. But there's no doubt that this is overshadowing Washington at a time when the president would typically be in the spotlight after he just returned from the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, and he's got his big State of the Union speech on Tuesday night. But right now, all eyes are on what's going on with the special counsel here.
You're right on that. Caitlin Collins, live from the White House. Thanks very much.
I want to get back to the Steve Wynn scandal that we've been talking about this morning. Kurt Bardella, political commentator and columnist for Huffington Post and USA Today, with us now, as well as Richard Painter, former White House ethics lawyer and professor of corporate law at the University of Minnesota. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Kurt, is this situation with Steve Wynn comparable to the Democratic situation that they had with Harvey Weinstein?
I actually think it's worse because in this case, Steve Wynn is the finance chairman of the Republican National Committee. He has an official leadership position with the Republican Party. Harvey Weinstein, at the time that the allegations came out, didn't have that. He was a big funder of the Democrats, and it was absolutely appropriate that Democrats were called upon to return those donations. But in this case, Wynn is right now actively a member of the Republican National Committee finance team. He is actively raising money for the Republican Party. And at this point, more than a day in now, it's been crickets from the Republican Party about this. So they have to hold themselves to the same standard that they held Democrats and Harvey Weinstein to. And in fact, they need to be better than that. They need to be more proactive because at this point, he's on their team. He's actively involved and engaged.
Well, he was. We don't know how long that's going to last up at this point. Richard, and to that point, I want to read a tweet from Alexandria Lapp. She's president of a super PAC for House Democrats. She said, posted, since he's finance chairman, shouldn't they have to give all the money back they've raised since he's been there? Is it fair question? Is it too broad? Should he give the money he raised back? Should he give the money he donated back? Will they do so? What is your take on that?
I think all these super PACs in both parties need to give all their money back. The American people are sick and tired of this campaign finance system, and what it does is make our elected officials dependent on people like this. People who commit sexual harassment, people who have ethics problems in their businesses, and most of all, people who want to influence our government for corrupt purposes. And that's our campaign finance system the way it is today. We have our leaders dependent on people like this in both parties. It's disgusting. They all ought to return the money. These super PACs are destroying our democracy. That's the big issue here. Sexual harassment, fraud, there's a lot of stuff that people do who get involved in the campaign finance system. We had Jared Kushner's father go to jail for campaign finance violations. What we're doing is allowing some of the sleaziest people in our country to have an enormous amount of influence over our public officials because we won't clean up campaign finance. And that would be my message to the Democrats and the Republicans. This isn't just about sexual harassment or whatever these people do. It's about our elected officials being dependent on these types of scumbags.
So, Kurt, we know that Wynn is blaming his ex-wife, saying that she orchestrated this. It has to do with a divorce that she's trying to revise. It lost Forbes is reporting this morning, Wynn has already lost $250 million just in the last 24 hours since this scandal broke. With that said, due to these allegations, how much potency, we see, economically what they're talking about, but how much potency does this really give the Democrats?
Well, until the Republican Party does anything, is he's in this position raising money, keeping the money. Every dollar that the NRSC, the NRCC, the RNC has, and that they use in this upcoming election is up for attack. The Democrats can say, hey, this candidate that benefited from this money, you're tainted. You've taken money from someone who's a serial sexual harasser. It is an issue that they can paint every Republican campaign with as long as those entities keep the money and don't return it. So I think it could be a major issue going forward, a huge distraction for Republican candidates. I don't know any candidate running in any district that wants to deal with Washington press asking them, hey, do you think the NRCC should give back the money? Do you think it's okay that he's still the finance chairman of the Republican National Committee? They don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. So it's just a massive distraction, and the Republican Party needs to act quickly and put this behind them because it is unnecessarily causing them harm at this point. It doesn't take more than 24 hours to do the right thing in this case, both politically as well as morally, and they need to step up and take action.
Richard, what is your take when we look ahead to the midterms? Will this affect any Republicans who may have taken money from Wynn and do not donate it to charity, as Democrats did with Weinstein?
Well, I think this is going to do damage, but so is the Mercer money, which had enormous influence in 2016, and the Koch brothers' money. And there's money on the Democrat side, too. And Americans are disgusted. They're disgusted with sleazy people being able to use their money or their fundraising skills, the fact that they know rich people, in order to influence our politicians. It's not a democracy anymore when we don't get to choose who wins the primaries, who the nominees are, and when we, the people, don't have a meaningful voice. It's about campaign finance as much as it's about sexual harassment and the other misconduct of people who are engaged in the campaign finance arena. And I think the voters come 2018 are going to be sick and tired of the way both parties are conducting their finance operations, making our elected officials dependent on the super rich. And that's the core problem, not just sexual harassment, not the other things that these people do.
So, Richard, from an ethics standpoint, does the president address this? And when do we hear from the RNC?
I think that he needs to address this. Yes, he ought to boot this guy out and make sure he has nothing to do with the Republican Party. But the voters are not just interested in sex and sexual harassment issues. Those are serious. But the campaign finance system, he campaigned against Citizens United, against this campaign finance system for the Republican nomination. As soon as he gets in there, it's just more and more money, more fundraising, more kowtowing to the super rich. Same thing's going on with the Democrats. Americans are fed up, and that's how we get into this situation.
Kurt, real quickly, I have to ask you about Hillary Clinton and this news this morning that she saved basically the job of somebody on her campaign in 2008 who was accused of sexual harassment. Your reaction to how that might affect anything moving forward for the Dems?
No, again, it's yet another example of how Hillary Clinton has a long career of saying one thing and doing another behind closed doors. And I think that it damages her standing in being an advocate and a spokesperson for the Me Too Time's Up movement. I think that Democrats need to move on from Hillary Clinton. Anyone that's still holding up her as a paragon of virtue who can save the party or be the centerpiece of the party, they need to move on from that. She's the past, and they'd be better served building up new leaders, people like Cory Booker or Congressman Castro, looking at people who can build the party forward, and they need a break from the past because clearly it didn't work. She's just one person in America who could lose to Donald Trump.
Okay. Oh, and before we go, I do need to read. Hillary Clinton has responded to this story now. And she says on Twitter, a story appeared today about something that happened in 2008. I was dismayed when it occurred, but was heartened the young woman came forward, was heard, and had her concerns taken seriously and addressed, she says. That we do know that his title was taken away, that this person was moved out of the office, but he did continue on the campaign at the point. Kurt Bardella, Richard Painter, we appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fallout from former MSU and USA Gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassar's actions has turned the heat on organizations associated with him. We'll tell you why the board of USA Gymnastics are now resigning.
And I'll tell you what, it is a nasty flu season this year. It's on track to become, in fact, one of the worst in nearly a decade. The CDC says we still have a long way to go with this, possibly into April. We'll talk about it more. Stay close.
Bounty presents The Quicker Downhiller with Lindsey Vonn.
When you live your life as an Olympic downhill skier, you can't let spills slow you down. That's why I use Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Bounty picks up spills quicker.
Nailed it.
And is 2 times more absorbent.
Boom.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper. Proud sponsor of the Olympic Winter Games 2018.
Mary Lou Retton, gold medal gymnast for Australian Dream.
I tried Australian Dream over 3 years ago because I wasn't getting results from other products. It provides temporary relief for my minor arthritis pain and muscle aches. I tell people to give it a try. If you aren't satisfied, they'll give you a full refund. What do you have to lose?
Australian Dream provides temporary relief from joint pain and muscle aches, and it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. Buy Australian Dream in stores or online today.
Who says being cheap is a good thing? We do. Cheapaware.com. There's nothing wrong with being cheap, with having fun, with saving money. So go ahead. Be smart. Be cool. Be cheap. Just download, click, or call and save on the best flights, hotels, cars, and more.
Cheapaware.com.
Go ahead. Be cheap.
It's frustrating when you can't see clearly. Imagine there were wiper blades.
Great numbers, guys. Great job.
Send great-looking emails that drive big results for your business.
Doris is down.
Constant Contact Email Marketing. Powerful stuff.
Imagine socks that actually make you feel better. Tommy Copper's ultra-comfortable over-the-calf compression socks are engineered to relieve tired, achy feet and legs. Designed to perform all day, every day with arch and Achilles support, comfortable calf compression, and proprietary anti-odor technology that won't wash out. Go to TommyCopper.com to save 25%. Try any Tommy Copper sock today, and if they aren't your most comfortable pair, get your money back, guaranteed. Life hurts. Feel better.
ADT now helps protect your family at home and on the go. Introducing new ADT Go, the family mobile safety app and service. Get connected features like family member locator, check-ins, private messaging, safe driver report, and SOS button with our winning 24/7 monitoring that makes ADT the most trusted security company. And now, get ADT Go for free with any ADT security system. Get started with the ADT Starter Kit, professionally installed for only $49. Get a security panel, keypad, key fob, entry and motion sensors. And for a limited time, get a camera included and installed at no additional cost. Plus, control your ADT security system and smart home features like locks, lights, and security cameras from the ADT Pulse app. The peace of mind that sets ADT apart is bringing families together. And now, get ADT Go for free with any security system. ADT, always there, now, everywhere.
MSU needs you!
hashtags of Me Too on Michigan State's campus there as students turned out in support of the victims of Larry Nassar.
Nassar is the former MSU and USA Gymnastics doctor convicted of sexually abusing dozens of young gymnasts. He will spend the rest of his life in prison. Now the board of USA Gymnastics says all its members will resign.
And Michigan State's president and athletic director are stepping down as well. As for the students, they say this is the time we need to heal.
To try and get yourself on the ballot.
The amount of indifference and complacency that all of them have exhibited is outrageous. It's unprecedented and it's disgusting, and they all need to leave.
I think the most important thing is to show these survivors that they do have a support system and that so many students do care about them.
Not just refusing to vote, but campaigning so others don't vote as well. We are actively organising this boycott, and this is the reason why we are being raided every day and our staff are being attacked.
As the leading opposition figure in Russia, you've been harassed. You get regular visits from the authorities, the police, the other inspectors. You've been insulted widely, and of course you've been attacked. How concerned are you in a country like this where opposition figures have been killed in the past? How concerned are you about your own safety and security?
I'm a reasonable man. I ran my election campaign for 12 months, and out of these months, I spent 2 in prison. So I have a clear understanding of what this regime can do. But I'm not afraid, and I'm not going to give up on what I want to do. I won't give up on my country. I won't give up on my civil rights. I won't give up on uniting those around me who believe in the same ideals as me. And there are quite a lot of people like that in Russia.
That exclusive interview with CNN's Matthew Chance. Thank you, Matthew. Canadian police are now saying what many people have suspected for many weeks now. The billionaire couple, Barry and Honey Sherman, were victims of a planned murder in December. But that investigation has been painfully slow, and Toronto police are struggling to scrap up clues. Paula Newton has this report.
After 6 weeks of exhaustive investigation, Toronto police left the home of Barry and Honey Sherman, admitting they still have no suspects, no motive, but one chilling conclusion. The billionaire couple was murdered.
We have sufficient evidence to describe this as a double homicide investigation, and that both Honey and Barry Sherman were in fact targeted.
Targeted for murder by one or more people determined to see them die in their own home in a gruesome fashion.
Honey and Barry Sherman were found deceased in the lower level pool area, hanging by belts from a poolside railing in a semi-seated position.
There were no signs of forced entry, and police say they are still talking to neighbors, witnesses, family members, business associates, anyone who knew anything about the Shermans' lives or even their last hours.
People are in shock and crying.
This murder mystery has shaken many, not just in this affluent Toronto neighborhood, but throughout Canada. Barry and Honey Sherman were high-profile billionaires. Barry, the pioneering generic drug tycoon, always eager to take on Big Pharma, and his wife Honey, patron of several charities. Together, they gave away tens of millions to several causes. All the more incredible that they were targeted and left to die in such a horrific way. The Shermans' children have launched an independent investigation of their own, and in a statement to media said their preliminary findings are consistent with that of police. The Shermans had close ties to prime ministers, both past and present. Their murder has shaken the political establishment, with many wondering who could have wanted to see them dead and why. Paul Newton, CNN, Ottawa.
Paris remains on flood alert after days of heavy rains there. Parts of the Seine River turned into an inland sea. This when the river banks burst over its banks earlier this week. The flooding has swallowed roads, the metro, and tunnels. It's forced some people to evacuate their homes. Even the famed Zouave statue along the Seine is partially covered by water right now. Look at that. Our meteorologist Ivan Cabrera has more about what happened and what we could expect.
Hey, George, the good news is that we've seen the levels rising slower, right? And so now the forecast is actually for it to be below the 2016 flood, which is the one everyone's talking about. That was about 18 months ago, and that was pretty horrific stuff here. So we continue to see the rain pushing through. The latest batch is not going to be as heavy. The problem is what's already happened, right? 183 millimeters of rainfall since December 1st. By the way, that's the second wettest period, 3 months, that we've seen since we've been keeping records. So there is the statue that we've all been watching, and as Parisians have as well. The Joave, 6.1 meters back in 2016. We're going to likely get close to that today, and then things will begin to wind down as far as the river levels. It's going to take a while, a few days, for them to come down significantly, but at least we're going in the right direction today as we peak. Moisture coming in from the south, not getting anywhere near Paris, but there is that little batch of rain that's going to be coming in later tonight. With the front moving through, it's not going to amount to much. It's not going to be that persistent rain that we had, of course, seen the last few weeks. That's the one that brought us the river levels just kind of really swelling up very quickly. Then another batch of rainfall moving in through the early part of Monday, and that would be about it. So we'll keep you posted, but conditions not as bad as 2016, and they look to improve beginning today and heading in through the next several days. George.
All right, Ivan, thank you. The Grammy Awards are being handed out on Sunday. CNN entertainment reporter Chloe Mellis has this preview for us.
I'm from the Empire State. New York, the city Jay-Z famously paid homage to, now hosting the Grammys for the first time in 15 years. So it's fitting the rapper also happens to lead the pack in Grammy nominations.
What's better than one billionaire? Two.
He's up for 8, including Album of the Year.
Now turn a 2 to a 4, 4 to an 8.
Kendrick Lamar and Bruno Mars come in second and third as the most nominated artists. Both are slated to perform at the show, which will be hosted again by Late Night's James Corden.
Let's get on with the show.
But music's biggest night comes at a complicated moment for the entertainment industry. A sexual harassment reckoning that spawned the Me Too movement has dominated award shows. Expect to see white roses on the Grammy red carpet and a message of female empowerment.
There are some very strong, self-aware female musicians who are going to be taking the Grammy stage. You've got Kesha, you've got Lady Gaga, you've got Pink, Lorde, Miley Cyrus. I think we're going to see some really strong, wonderful moments.
Musicians tend to be a more unbuttoned, unpredictable crowd, but here at Madison Square Garden, there's a sense that anything can happen on Grammy night, and that probably includes some jabs at President Trump.
Historically, the Grammys hasn't been as politically charged as other award shows, but given that we're just a little over a year past the election and the mood in this country is very fired up and still very divided, I would be very surprised if no artist spoke about politics at all at the Grammys this year.
The topic of race may also come up, especially in light of President Trump's controversial comments about African countries. Either way, the Grammys are already sending a strong message of diversity. This year, the 7 most nominated artists are all people of color. And Despacito, the Latin crossover sensation, could make history. Despacito. It could become the first Spanish-language song ever to win Song of the Year. Chloe Mellis, CNN, New York.
Chloe, thank you, and thank you for being with us for CNN Newsroom. I'm George Howell at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Vital Signs with Dr. Sanjay Gupta is up next, but first, your world headlines right after the break.
Inside Africa, unlocking the mysteries behind the continent you thought you knew. The rhythms of an American classic redefined in Zimbabwe.
Township jazz for me has allowed me to express my inner feelings. I feel more alive.
Inside Africa, tonight, only on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank.
I'm Jemana Karachi in Erbil, and this is CNN.
From CNN World Headquarters in Atlanta, I'm George Howell. This is CNN News Now. In Afghanistan, authorities say at least 40 people are dead, at least 140 wounded. This after a bomb attack in that nation's capital of Kabul. An official says the blast came from an ambulance packed with explosives. A Taliban spokesman claims that group is responsible. We'll continue to cover it for you. The U.S. President Donald Trump is back at the White House after 2 days at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. Mr. Trump got mostly favorable reviews for his speech there Friday, but he faces a growing storm at home over the reports that he tried to fire special counsel Robert Mueller back in June. The U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is in Poland to mark International Holocaust Remembrance Day. He laid a wreath at the memorial for the heroes of the 1943 Jewish ghetto uprising in Warsaw. It's the 73rd anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camps. And Tillerson said, "We can never be indifferent to the face of evil." At the Australian Open, Simona Halep and Caroline Wozniacki slugged it out in the heat for almost 3 hours until Wozniacki beat Halep in a grueling 3 sets to gain the women's singles title. It's her first ever Grand Slam championship win. That's your CNN News Now. I'm George Howell. Vital Signs with Dr. Sanjay Gupta is up next.
Vital Signs with Dr. Sanjay Gupta in association with Dubai Healthcare City.
Inhaling, perspiring, blinking, these actions are all on autopilot. But behind these simple functions is a complex network made up of billions of cells telling our lungs to breathe, our skin to sweat, and our eyes to blink. This silent workhorse is known as the nervous system. This is Vital Signs. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta. The nervous system controls everything we do, from the voluntary to the involuntary, through a neurological tag team that races faster than the time it took me to finish this sentence. It's essentially the way that we control our bodies and communicate with the world around us. So how does it work? What happens when it doesn't? And what does the future hold for the pathways that captain our bodies? Our brain is always on, processing information from our surroundings and from within. It is our central command center. The brain is the first place to receive a signal. From there, it travels down the spinal cord and branches out to our organs. For example, if you touch a hot stove, the nerves in your skin send a message of pain to your brain, which then tells the muscles in your hand to move away. You can thank your nervous system for that speedy reaction. It is essentially our body's wiring, made up of millions of microscopic messengers called neurons that send signals to parts of the body. But what happens when our mainframes don't run properly? Movement, speech, memory, and much more can be affected. According to the U.S. National Institute of Health, there are over 600 neurological diseases affecting more than 1 billion people around the world, ranging from muscular diseases like multiple sclerosis to cognitive ones like Alzheimer's. And it can all start with a small disturbance in our wiring.
These small fibers are involved in regulating blood pressure, as well as pulse, heart rate.
Dr. Christopher Klein is a neurologist at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota.
Those are the sensory nerves. They look like little tree branches.
For 30 years, he's been examining what goes on in our neural circuits.
Is it something in the brain? Is it something in the spinal cord? Or is it something out from the spinal cord to the feet? It's a riddle that has a meaningful outcome if you can solve it.
He specializes in a very rare condition, the absence of pain.
I think the best term agreed on right now is congenital insensitivity to pain.
Life without pain sounds like a blessing, but pain is our #1 defense mechanism. Without it, we can severely injure ourselves, or we can miss warning signs of infections.
So mothers would outline the story of many fractures, many visits to the emergency room, and sometimes even concern from healthcare givers that there was some nefarious behavior on the parents, when in fact it was just that these poor kids could not feel any pain. The characteristic features are early corneal abrasions, early fractures, multiple injuries, including frequently injuries to the skull. Patients very early in infancy may bite their lip to the point that it is mutilated, or their tongue. Families who are dealing with these problems really have to go through heroic efforts, including almost 24-hour supervision. The thing that's important to understand about this disorder is they are not without feeling. So when they're exposed to the stimulus like a hot plate, they're feeling something, but they just don't have that natural recoil.
Present from birth, congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis, or CIPA, prevents pain fibers from firing signals to the brain. This genetic disorder is so rare, its prevalence is unknown.
Just to put it in perspective, in a year of my clinic, I might come to the diagnosis in only maybe 1 in a total year. And so, you know, that's pretty rare.
Until 2006, little was known about CIPA, and doctors didn't know how to test for it.
When we tested them, we couldn't find any abnormalities, so we knew we had something different, as did our colleagues throughout the world who were seeing these same very rare patients.
Later that year, a research team at the University of Cambridge identified one cause for CIPA. An abnormal gene inherited from both parents resulted in mutations of the SCN9A gene.
There seems to be an inherent problem in insensitivity to pain for this sodium channel to fire, but we now know it's not the entire story.
Since then, other mutations that cause pain insensitivity have been identified. For example, one blocks the growth of nerve endings that detect pain to begin with.
So this is a person who has the SCN9A mutation, and this is a person who we think probably has a mutation in the new gene that's recently been described, because that group of patients have select loss of painful sensory fibers.
Despite these findings, there is still no cure.
So what we're really involved with is teaching the children, with the parents coaching, how to recognize that feeling as a dangerous feeling. A nice analogy I like is a person who's colorblind. They can see. So these people, if we keep working with them, they can eventually understand to avoid things that are very likely injurious.
Still, Dr. Klein is hopeful that research will provide help not only for CIPA, but also for those in pain.
We have a huge epidemic worldwide with pain. I see this as a huge opportunity to move things forward in understanding and hopefully coming to more safe therapies for pain. In the United States, we're losing a huge number of people to opioid overdose. And so can we learn something here where we can develop a new drug that will not have the risk and help patients who are suffering with this?
Next, is it possible to map the entire nervous system? One lab in the United States is trying to unravel the wiring in our brains.
Over the past 14 years, Dubai Healthcare City has grown to establish itself as a world-class health destination. We are building on 4 key pillars to create an ecosystem that covers not only health and well-being, but also training the doctors of the future, finding cures and improving living environments. We are proud to be creating an internationally
heard of the Human Genome Project. It's this international research effort that identified and mapped the more than 3 billion pairs of DNA which define all of us. Well, now researchers are trying to do the same with our nerves. Neuroscientists want to understand how the 86 billion neurons in our brains communicate to create behavior. But connecting the dots on even the most basic of signals in the common fruit fly is proving to be rather pesky. What most people probably don't think twice about, the common fruit fly, Marta Zlatic thinks about all day. In fact, they are the stars of her show at the Janelia Research Campus in Ashburn, Virginia. Zlatic's team is filming the reactions that fruit fly larvae, or Drosophila, have to certain stimuli. Like a puff of air, for example.
You see, it's rolling.
This helps identify which of their 15,000 neurons make them recoil in response. These recordings are then helping them map the galaxy of neurons that produce behavior. It's the first step toward understanding how nervous systems work across the animal kingdom.
I've always been fascinated by behavior and by the way in which the nervous system works. How can neural circuits generate, well, everything we are, our personalities, our decisions, our thoughts, our ability to be creative.
It is believed that the adult brain contains some 86 billion neurons. At birth, many of these neurons are not yet fully connected to each other. As we grow and learn new skills, new neural pathways are created in our brains. It is estimated that one neuron may connect with thousands of other neurons, and these connections allow things like walking and typing and reading, for instance, to become second nature. Each of these actions have their own pattern or computation made up of many specific neurons. But defining these neuronal networks is not so easy, even in an insect that has a fraction of the neurons that we do. Instead of 86 billion, they have just 15,000.
The fruit fly larva at the moment is a really ideal model system, and that is because the connections between neurons are very small. It has a compact enough nervous system that it is possible to image the entire nervous system with electron microscopy. It is possible to manipulate genetically almost every single neuron type.
Lights off, camera on. Under these microscopes, a turn to the left or a freeze offer clues into what ensemble of neurons creates a fight or flight behavior.
So in a way, neurons vote for each action. The nervous system has to implement a so-called a very harsh and decisive computation, a winner-take-all computation, because a nervous system cannot afford to be indecisive. It cannot give confusing commands. You cannot try to both sit here and walk at the same time.
Zlatic's team discovered which neurons correlated with each response, and then reverse engineered the experiment, activating the neurons to perform one way or the other.
We go through thousands of neurons in this way, one neuron at a time, and ask, what happens if we activate this neuron?
You wouldn't think a common fruit fly would be so complex, but a few years of experiments in, and they still only mapped 2/3 of its brain.
Everything we do is in a very close collaboration with the lab of Albert Cardona. They are experts in mapping the wiring diagrams.
Cardona's maps look a little like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Every tiny little black line that you see in here is a membrane of a little piece of a neuron.
But to his trained eyes, this wiring diagram helps explain how we do what we do.
The equivalent would be understanding the flow of traffic in Washington, D.C. without knowing the map of streets. You need to know in which directions will the cars flow, which streets are wider, which ones are narrower, where you have construction work. You need to know all of this information. So here you need to know exactly as well where the signals are going, how are they getting processed, how are they getting compared. And so this is a mesh that is the contour of the entire central nervous system.
A symbiotic relationship. Cardona's maps then helps La teach, predict, and test specific neural pathways.
Perhaps the key point here is that in order to explain how the brain works, you need to formulate a model of how it works, test this model experimentally, and then observe the behavior as well and see that the model actually predicts that if, for instance, you disable one neuron, the animal will behave in a certain way. And by advancing in this way, piece by piece, across this nervous system, we're putting together a comprehensive picture of how a brain works as a whole, which had never been possible before.
Their current research focuses on mapping dopaminergic neurons, which are involved in learning.
We are manipulating specific circuit elements while at the same time recording the output, in this case, the firing of these dopaminergic neurons. So if an animal expects to do something and then get a reward, but it doesn't get a reward, then these dopaminergic neurons will be very, very active, and they will induce a memory, so that in the future, the animal can improve its behavior and its decision-making. So whenever there is a mistake, then nervous system learns. It hopefully it does. Otherwise, we would never improve our behavior. And so this is a common property of brains across the animal kingdom, from monkeys to mice to insects.
These maggots squirming about may not appear to be a big deal, but these small creatures are helping to answer one of the biggest questions in modern neuroscience. How do our brains create behavior?
I can definitely see this translating into our understanding of human nervous systems, because there are many human brain functions that are common to all animals. Decision-making is one of them, choosing which action to do when.
Post-test is almost significant.
If we understand how decisions are implemented and how learning happens, at least the types of neurons and motifs that might be involved, one can start thinking about selectively targeting them to improve disorders and, of course, learning or decision-making.
Ahead on Vital Signs, how technology is merging with nerves to change lives.
Over the past 14 years, Dubai Healthcare City has grown to establish itself as a world-class health destination. We are building on 4 key pillars to create an ecosystem that covers not only health and well-being, but also training the doctors of the future, finding cures and improving living environments. We are proud to be creating an internationally recognized destination for health and well-being that, in the lead-up to the Expo 2020, strengthens Dubai's vision to become a sustainable and diverse city of the future.
Mapping how our neurons communicate, that's only half the puzzle. Applying those findings to create medicine or to enhance surgical procedures, well, that could be the future of neuroresearch. Now, one area that's making strides in manipulating nerves is prosthetics. A technique that reassigns nerve endings is giving hope and control back to amputees.
Are you ready? Set, go!
Tiffany Johnson is a happy wife.
Oh, good job, Luke.
And a mother of 3.
You're a sneaky Sue. Yes, you are.
There you go.
You can be on this one for now, and then you guys can trade in a minute.
As most working moms do, she struggles with the day-to-day sometimes.
Give Natalie a chance. She won't want to be on for long. Okay, are you ready?
But not too long ago, she was struggling for her life.
We were on a cruise
We had decided early on in the cruise that we wanted to for sure snorkel in Nassau because it was really good snorkeling. And so we went out to the reef. I was just staring at the fish, enjoying the view, and I felt like I had bumped into something, like a tug on my arm. And I remember even just thinking, oh, what did I bump into? And then when I turned, I was literally face to face with the shark. Fear took over, and it just dawned on me what was going on. My whole arm was in his mouth, and I remember hearing the sound of my screaming through the snorkel tube. My body wanted to give up. I was seeing almost like a movie reel of my kids, and I remember just thinking, no, we are not going there. And then when I yanked my arm finally that last time, his jaws opened, and I pulled my arm out, and it was just gone. It was a mangled stump. At that point, I just began to swim back with my left arm, and I just prayed. I prayed in the Holy Spirit, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get back to that boat. We stopped at Paradise Island because that was the closest shoreline. We're yelling out for help. They're like, no, we don't have anything for her here.
Surgery scar.
You're gonna have to go to the main port.
And this is how he's dealing with it. This is how long it took Henry to come home. And thanks to Lankenau Heart Institute, this is their perfectly normal life. There may come a day when our advanced cardiac care will save your life. We spend every other day making sure it doesn't have to.
President Trump, the State of the Union Address. Special live coverage starts Tuesday night at 5 Eastern.
So the president's first official State of the Union address this week is a chance, for a reset for President Trump.
He can use it to set the agenda before this fall's midterm elections. And the question is, will he take that opportunity, or will he get derailed by the headlines that have been surrounding the Russia investigation? Well, joining us now, CNN presidential historian Tim Naftali. Tim, nice to see you this morning.
Nice to be here.
All right, so I'll start with the simple one, and that is, what does the president need to accomplish with this address?
Well, what we expect from presidents is that they'll set an agenda and share their vision. State of the Unions are also used, or States of the Union are also used to brag a little bit about what was accomplished the year before and to lay out a legislative agenda. That's why these speeches can be so long. They tend to be about an hour. Sometimes when President Clinton was around, they were about an hour and 20 minutes. But that's because they include a laundry list of what the president expects to achieve or hopes to achieve with the help of Congress over the coming year. What people watching President Trump are going to be looking for is whether he has a philosophy of governing. What people mean by presidential, him looking presidential, is that he is willing to lay out a reasoned approach to achieving his goals, or is he just trying to provoke and disrupt? We saw something very important happen just a week ago when the president came forward with a proposal regarding immigration, which was clearly beyond what his base would have expected. So the president gave us an indication, perhaps, maybe it was a foreshadowing of the speech to come, that he might actually, for the first time in his presidency, try not just to be the president of the red states, but of all states. So what's possible with this speech is that he's actually going to move beyond where he was in his inaugural address and start talking to a much broader group of Americans.
So I want to talk to you about midterms as we look forward, because The Hill says there's a major chance here for him to kind of set the agenda with this speech. They write, since the era of the Civil War, the party that controls the White House, on average, loses 32 House seats and 2 Senate seats. Democrats are obviously banking on history. Republicans, they want to create new history here. What do you think the president will do with that? Is he really aware of the consequence of that?
Well, I'm not in his head, but I'm sure he's aware of it. And I suspect that some of the movement we saw on Dreamers was his response to the fact that his public opinion poll. The polls have been very, very bad for him, and it looked a little bit like he was going to get to 40% in approval, which, by the way, is historically really low for a first-term president. But it didn't. He got up to 40 and it started to drop again. So I suspect he knows this very well and is trying to nudge his numbers up. By the way, nudging your numbers up, it's not just a feel-good proposition. It also affects the way people in Congress deal with you. If you're a very unpopular president, they run away from you when a midterm election comes. And President Trump doesn't want that to happen, and his allies in Congress don't want that to happen either.
It's kind of the Rodney Dangerfield effect. You don't get no respect, as you used to say.
True.
Yeah. Tim, Naftali, we do appreciate especially your perspective on this. Thanks very much.
Thank you both. Good morning.
With Expedia, one click gives you access to discounts on thousands of hotels, cars, and things to do, like the Fairmont Mayakoba, for 59% off. Everything you need to go. Expedia.
The closer you get to home, the more you know the commute is worth it. For all the work you pour into this place, you sure get a lot more out of it. You and that John Deere tractor, so versatile, you can keep dreaming up projects all the way home. It's a longer drive, but just like a John Deere, it's worth it. Nothing runs like a Deere. Now you can own a 1E subcompact tractor for just $99 a month. Learn more at your John Deere dealer.
They appear out of nowhere, my secret visitors.
Hallucinations and delusions, the unknown parts of living with Parkinson's.
The plots they unfold, but only in my mind.
Over 50% of people with Parkinson's will experience hallucinations or delusions during the course of their disease. If your loved one is experiencing these symptoms, talk to your Parkinson's specialist. There are treatment options that can help.
My visitors should be the ones I want to see.
Take home 6 of our famous yeast rolls for free at Golden Corral. Hurry in for beef brisket, ribs, and more 7 nights a week, just $13.99. And take home 6 yeast rolls for free. Yeah, baby. Golden Corral. Your choice rules.
DirecTV has been rated #1 in customer satisfaction over cable for 17 years running. But some people still like cable, just like some people like pre-shaken sodas, having their seat kicked on an airplane, being rammed by a shopping cart, sitting in gum, and walking into a glass door. But for everyone else, there's DirecTV. For #1 rated customer satisfaction over cable, switch to DirecTV and get a $200 reward card. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
Last year, I saved almost $20,000 in tax write-offs.
$7,243 worth of reimbursable mileage.
Microsoft brings you MileIQ, an app that makes it easy to track your business miles. It runs in the background on your smartphone to capture and log all of your drives.
I love MileIQ. Tracking my miles saves me thousands of dollars. It's the easiest app for tracking your business miles.
Download it for free and join millions of drivers that trust MileIQ by Microsoft.
We packed new banquet mega bowls full of majestic piles of cheddar mac and cheese smothered in mozzarella. But it wasn't mega. So we topped it with protein-packed chunks of buffalo-style chicken. Now that's mega.
He was a star of the 2016 campaign. Now, Esquire says The Van Jones Show is one of the most anticipated TV shows of 2018. The Van Jones Show premieres tonight at 7 Eastern on CNN.
It starts with the ingredients. Made from scratch. Cooked to perfection. Great food is what you expect from a Greek diner, and that's what you'll find here at Andy's Diner. This is no ordinary menu, and this is no ordinary diner. Expansive menu choices, homemade. Experience 24 hours of truly delicious dining. Andy's Diner. It's time to raise your expectations in Conshohocken, Ben Salem, and Springhouse.
We know life can be hectic. That's why at Xfinity, we've been working hard to simplify your experiences with us. Now with instant text and email updates, you'll always be up to date. You can easily add premium channels so you don't miss your favorite show. And with just a single word, find all the answers you're looking for. Because getting what you need should be simple, fast, and easy. Download the Xfinity My Account app or go online today.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
the latest high-profile, wealthy, and politically connected man accused of sexual misconduct. Preposterous, says Steve Wynn, the Vegas hotel and casino billionaire.
Steve Wynn, I want to thank you. I want to thank the whole group. The money raised.
Closely tied to President Trump as finance chairman of the Republican National Committee. Democrats are demanding the RNC return any campaign contributions.
Mounting evidence of possible obstruction of justice against the President of the United States.
President Trump ordered White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Mueller last June.
Fake news, folks. Fake news.
It's not a bombshell to Mueller. I think that is obstruction of justice, and I think that that is grounds for impeachment.
There have been failures at MSU.
Asking for an immediate congressional investigation into USA Gymnastics and the U.S. Olympic Committee.
They knew about what was going on, and it went on for too long.
I hope Saturday morning has been good to you so far. I'm Christy Paul.
And I'm Martin Savage, in for Victor Blackwell. It was, if you can imagine, just a week ago, the president was singing his praises. Now Steve Wynn, a wealthy casino mogul who is also the RNC's finance chairman, is in the middle of a sexual misconduct scandal. According to the Wall Street Journal, dozens of women say that Wynn forced them to perform sex acts when they worked for him. This morning, Wynn is calling those claims preposterous.
In the meantime, Senate Democrats are trying to protect the special counsel in the Russia probe from the White House. After major news outlets, including CNN, confirmed President Trump came dangerously close to firing Bob Mueller last year, lawmakers are now pushing legislation to keep any official from undermining the investigation.
So we're going to begin, though, with the scandal that's surrounding the top official of the RNC. CNN's Miguel Marquez joins me now from Las Vegas with the details on this. Good morning, Miguel.
Good morning there, Martin. The president and Steve Wynn have been competitors in the past. Their hotels here in Las Vegas are just a few blocks from each other. They've known each other for decades, and now these sex allegations are casting that entire relationship in a new light. Preposterous, says Steve Wynn, the Vegas hotel and casino billionaire, to charges that he ever assaulted any woman. The blistering statement from Wynn himself after a bombshell Wall Street Journal report that a manicurist in 2005 was forced to lie on a massage table naked while she claims Wynn raped her. The Journal also reporting Wynn paid the manicurist $7.5 million in a settlement. Wynn, in his statement, said the instigation of these accusations is the continued work of my ex-wife, Elaine Wynn, with whom I am involved in a terrible and nasty lawsuit in which she is seeking a revised divorce settlement. Elaine Wynn's attorney told the Journal that's just not true. Wynn, the latest high-profile, wealthy, and politically connected man accused of sexual misconduct. The Wall Street Journal says it spoke to more than 150 employees, and dozens reported a pattern of sexual abuse by Wynn. Wynn, in his statement, said, "We find ourselves in a world where people can make allegations regardless of the truth, and a person is left with the choice of weathering insulting publicity or engaging in multi-year lawsuits. It is deplorable for anyone to find themselves in this situation." The allegations now reverberating in politics, where despite a history of supporting both parties.
I'm friendly with Bill and Hillary, and I'm a friend of Donald Trump's. I haven't given a dime to either one of them. And I haven't decided who I'm going to vote for.
Wynn is now closely tied to President Trump as finance chairman of the Republican National Committee. Democrats are demanding the RNC return any campaign contributions from Wynn, much the way Republicans did with Harvey Weinstein. Allegations against Wynn are now being used to put pressure on the Republican Party. The Democratic National Committee saying today the RNC have helped fund the campaign of an alleged child molester, blindly supported the GOP's attacks on women's health, supported a president who has been accused of sexual misconduct by over a dozen women, and now they remain silent amid sexual assault allegations involving Steve Wynn, one of their party's most senior officials. So just how close are these two been? Well, last weekend the president was supposed to be in Mar-a-Lago, but he stayed in D.C. because of the shutdown. He was supposed to be there for a Trump Victory Fund RNC fundraiser. In his stead, Steve Wynn spoke. The president sent a video where he singled out Steve Wynn. CNN obtained audio of that video.
Steve Wynn, I want to thank you. I want to thank the whole group. The money raised. You're really special people. Thank you very much. We'll see you the next time.
Now, in fairness, the president did mention several other people, but he certainly singled Steve Wynn out. And coincidentally, today is Steve Wynn's 76th birthday. Back to you guys.
Miguel Marquez, thank you very much for that.
Let's talk about the other big political headline this morning. Democrats looking for a way to protect special counsel Robert Mueller after these reports that the president tried to fire him from the Russia investigation. CNN's Caitlin Collins at the White House. What are you hearing this morning, Caitlin, about the Democrats' plan to protect Mueller's team?
Well, they've raised these questions of how to protect Robert Mueller once again, and they are seeking to ensure that these ongoing budget negotiations on Capitol Hill include some type of legislation that would protect the special counsel from being able to be fired by the president alone. Now, this isn't the first time that the Democrats have raised this idea. They actually brought it up late summer, early fall last year when there was speculation that the president could be considering Bob Mueller. But the talk of this legislation died down back then because not only the president, but his aides and his lawyers insisted that it wasn't on the table for him to even be considering firing Bob Mueller, something we now know is not true with the wake of that New York Times report that the White House counsel actually threatened to quit after the president told him to fire the special counsel. Now, Senator Mark Warner is the leading Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He's often been a critic of the president's, but here's what he had to say about the news that the president wanted the special counsel fired.
I think if the president had gone through with this or tries to go through with it on a going forward basis, we're into uncharted territory. We're into the real question of the fundamentals of our democracy. Are we still going to be a country where rule of law pervades and that no one, even the president, is above the law? My hope will be come next week that the Congress would take up bipartisan legislation that was around last year that would protect the special prosecutor from these kind of arbitrary actions.
Now, you notice there at the end, he said bipartisan legislation. This will need Republican support because they control the House and the Senate. But right now, this is overshadowing Washington, these breaking developments, as the president is set to give his first State of the Union address on Tuesday. But right now, the Mueller investigation is certainly overshadowing it all.
All right. Caitlin Collins, live from the White House for us. Caitlin, thank you.
All of that means we got plenty to discuss, and here to do just that, political reporter Daniel Lippman, CNN senior political writer Juana Summers, and CNN legal analyst Paige Pate. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Juana, let me start with you with the first question. We just heard Senator Mark Warner there. Do you think the Democrats have a legitimate chance of passing legislation, to protect Mueller?
I think there's certainly a lot of groundswell support for this. I think a lot of people were really shaken by what they heard in that New York Times report that my colleague Caitlin Collins mentioned. And it'll just be really curious to see whether or not they can actually, they will need Republican support. And there are a lot of Republicans, I think, also who do not want to see the special counsel fired.
Syria.
Okay, so the real question here is, do you think Republicans are going to go along with that? Do you?
I think that remains to be seen. I think that there is definitely, you hear Republicans when we're up on Capitol Hill and we're talking to them, they're saying, you know, we don't want to see this happen. A lot of Republicans even saying they don't think the president would make that step. So I think that obviously it would set a very, very bad precedent if the president were to take that step. So I think that there is a chance that Republicans could go along with this idea, yes.
Okay. Paige, I want to draw on your legal mind on two things. First, sources tell CNN that President Trump is really upset and possibly considering firing Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General. His advisors, of course, are trying to tell him, hey, that's a bad idea. But what happens if he were to go through with it?
Well, the president certainly has the legal ability and authority to remove the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. He can do it. He works in the Justice Department. The president, as the chief executive, is in control of the Justice Department. It would be a very bad idea politically, but also legally, because Rod Rosenstein is in charge of the special counsel's investigation. Robert Mueller has to report to Rod Rosenstein when he wants to go in a different direction, when he's made findings or conclusions about the investigation. So if you remove Rosenstein, you've got to have somebody else put in place to basically oversee the special counsel's investigation, because the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, has already recused himself. So that would allow the president to have direct influence over the special counsel's investigation without removing Rob Mueller. So I can see why the president may want to do it, but it's a bad idea.
Okay. Daniel, hold on a second. I just want to ask one more page, and that is if it got to a point where the president is actually interviewed by Mueller and his team,
right.
Would you expect that the question would be asked directly of the president, hey, did you really plan to fire me or attempt to fire me back in June of last year?
I certainly think that those questions will be asked, maybe not that direct question. And first of all, we don't know that Rob Mueller would actually do the questioning. Anyone on his team could take the place of the investigator at that point, the person who's giving the questions to the president. But I do think they're going to focus on those conversations about replacing not just Jim Comey, but also the special counsel, because we know that at this point, the special counsel's office has already interviewed people in the White House who say that these conversations took place. And we heard President Trump say it's all fake news. So they may be able to confront the president with evidence that this conversation took place, and if he denies it, then that's a potential false statement crime.
Mm-hmm. All right, Daniel, now to you. As we just heard, President Trump has said that, you know, when any talk that he tried to fire Robert Mueller was fake news. But, you know, even conservative outlets like Fox News have confirmed the details. So can that fake news defense really work for the president? Will it hold up?
I don't think most people agree with the president on this. You have Christopher Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax, say back in the summer, who's one of Trump's best friends, try to warn him against firing Mueller. You also had Anthony Scaramucci, who is still a big Trump ally. He said back then that Trump had thought about that as well. And so I think back to your point about Republicans, I think a lot of congressional Republicans, they would be afraid if Trump fired Mueller because it could hurt them in the midterms, and also it would hurt the president as well, because it would make it much harder for them to defend him, given the fact that Mueller is a Republican and is widely respected as being an arbiter of justice.
Well, okay, having said that, then let me go back to what I asked Juana, and I'm asking you, Daniel, now. Do you expect that maybe Republicans would go along with the Democrat idea of protecting Mueller in some way?
I think after that report on Wednesday by the Times, it's much harder for them to oppose that move. I think most constituents would probably agree to protect Mueller from Trump firing him. And I think only the most hardcore Trump supporters in the Senate and the House on the Republican side would probably try to block this move. I think Mitch McConnell, if it was up to him, he would agree with this. He had told Don McGahn to stay in that job to try to protect Trump from his own mistakes.
All right. I want to move on to something else here, and that's hotel mogul Steve Wynn. He is, of course, denying allegations of sexual misconduct that are detailed by the Wall Street Journal, and we've been reporting them. Juana, Wynn is the finance chairman of the GOP. Certainly the party and the president, in some way, you would expect, have to address this.
I would certainly expect so. So far, at least, as I've been checking my phone, we have not seen the president go on Twitter and talk about that, although he's been tweeting some about the wall and border security. But again, as you point out, he's the finance chairman of the RNC. This is a president that, throughout his time in office, throughout his campaign, has been dogged by allegations of sexual misconduct himself. I think this is certainly going to be increased pressure when lawmakers return to Washington next week, if the White House and the RNC do remain silent about this. Of course, important to note that Wynn said that this is absolutely preposterous, that these things did not happen, but the scope of the allegations that were reported by the Wall Street Journal go as far as rape. So I would find it very difficult for the president to remain silent here, given that glowing speech that he gave about Wynn just as recently as last week in that video that we played a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, Juana Summers, Daniel Lippman, and Paige Pate, good to see you all, and thanks for joining the conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to tell you about a deadly bombing in Kabul this morning, and these are the numbers coming into us now. 40 people are dead. 140 others are injured. Reuters, citing Afghanistan's health ministry, put the number of dead above 60, however. So some conflicting numbers there, but very significant. This was the scene right after the bomb detonated. The attacker drove an ambulance loaded with explosives into a government building. Officials say police did identify the attacker at a checkpoint, but they couldn't stop him in time. The Taliban, by the way, has claimed responsibility for that attack.
Russian trolls on Facebook organized 2 opposing protests, and people fall for them both, facing off the streets. Will it work again this year?
Time's up! Time's up! Time's up! Time's up! Time's up!
Time's up. They're chanting there on Michigan State's campus. Students challenging the leaders there to make a change. This, of course, after the sex abuse scandal.
Also, civil rights groups and victims' rights activists take on Betsy DeVos and the Education Department. Find out why they say a new policy is having a chilling effect on survivors of sexual assault on college campuses.
Mary Lou Retton, gold medal gymnast for Australian Dream.
I tried Australian Dream over 3 years ago because I wasn't getting results from other products. It provides temporary relief for my minor arthritis pain and muscle aches. I tell people to give it a try. If you aren't satisfied, they'll give you a full refund. What do you have to lose?
Australian Dream provides temporary relief from joint pain and muscle aches, and it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. Buy Australian Dream in stores or online today.
Hi. I'm the one clocking in when you're clocking out, sensing your every move and automatically adjusting to help you stay effortlessly comfortable. I can also help with this. Does your bed do that? Oh, I don't actually talk, though I'm smart enough to. I'm the new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed. Let's meet at a Sleep Number store.
Lily, she pretty much lives in her favorite princess dress. But once a week, I let her play sheriff so I can wash it. I use Tide to get out those weak old stains and Downy to get it fresh and soft.
You are free to go.
Tide and Downy together.
ProPlan BrightMind Adult 7 Plus promotes alertness and mental sharpness in dogs 7 and older.
The difference has been incredible. She's much more aware. She wants to learn things.
Purina ProPlan BrightMind, nutrition that performs.
Mike and I are both veterans, both served in the Navy. I do outrank my husband, not just being in the military, but at home.
She thinks she's the boss. She only had me by 1 grade. We bought our first home together in 2010.
His family had used another insurance product, but I was like, I've had USAA for a while. Why don't we call and check the rates?
It was an instant savings, and I should have changed a long time ago.
There's no point in looking elsewhere, really. We're the Tennies, and we're USAA members for life.
USAA. Get your insurance quote today.
My bladder leakage was making me feel like I couldn't spend time with my grandson. Now, Depend FitFlex has their fastest absorbing material inside, so it keeps me dry and protected. Go to Depend.com, get a coupon, and try them for yourself.
Running a business is not for the faint of heart. Luckily, Office Depot Office Max is here to take care of you.
Taking care of business.
With print services. Done right, on time, guaranteed. Expert tech support. This week at Office Depot Office Max, save big on tax software for your business. Plus, let us help you manage your business finances at OfficeDepot.com/BizBox.
Taking care of business.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to jumpstart sales.
Build attendance for an event.
Help people find their way. Fast Signs designed new directional signage.
And got them back on track. Get started at FastSigns.com.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com.
Successful people have one thing in common. They read more. How do they find the time? With Audible. Audible has the world's largest selection of audiobooks. For just $14.95 a month, you get a credit, good for any audiobook. And you can roll your credits to the next month if you don't use them. Audible members get free, no-hassle exchanges and use the mobile app to listen anytime, anywhere. Start a 30-day trial and your first audiobook is free. Listening is the new reading. Text audio 22 to 500 500 to start listening today.
You could hear there the chants of Me Too on Michigan State's campus as students turned out in support of Larry Nassar's victims.
Nassar, the former MSU and USA gymnastics doctor, spending the rest of his life now in prison for sexually abusing dozens of young gymnasts. And the board of USA Gymnastics now says all its members, all of them, will resign.
And Michigan State's university president and athletic director are also stepping down. Students say they should leave.
The amount of indifference and complacency that all of them have exhibited is outrageous. It's unprecedented and it's disgusting, and they all need to leave.
I think the most important thing is to show these survivors that they do have a support system and that so many students do care about them.
Christine Brennan with us now, CNN sports analyst and sports columnist for USA Today.
Christine, students, we saw that turned up in teal in support of survivors at the Michigan State basketball game. It was both a visual and powerful statement. And I'm wondering, what does Michigan State University need to do to start the healing process? Because there's still also the investigation process.
Well, Martin, certainly one of the things you wonder about is the Board of Trustees at Michigan State, including the man who said a few days ago, referred to the whole terrible story as that Nassar thing. So my sense is after the athletic director's gone, of course, the president is gone, that there may well be others that have to go. I also think a sense for the students or the athletes, and of course the same would go for USA Gymnastics and the U.S. Olympic Committee, a sense that there is a real change in terms of listening to athletes, in terms of some kind of liaison, not just in name only, but someone who the athletes feel they can speak to, who listens to them. You know, this was a 20th century reaction, frankly, by Michigan State and USA Gymnastics to a 21st century problem, and thankfully the voices of these women were heard through television, and now the reaction we are seeing, the waves of concern and horror about what happened. And it's a little bit, it's late, it's very late in the game, but thankfully now it's finally happening.
It's a very good way to characterize it. Let's listen together here to Michigan State's basketball coach.
It's still our top priority in this healing process is for our courageous survivors. And as a campus community, we do need to come together as Spartans to be a part of that healing process, and that's going to fall on all of us. As far as the reports today, we will cooperate with any investigation going forward, as we have always done.
So do you expect, Christine, that there will be civil suits brought? And how might that affect the university?
Oh, well, if Penn State is our guide, the terrible, reprehensible Jerry Sandusky story from that broke in 2011 that in some ways is still playing out, at least in terms of feelings and emotions and anger at Penn State. Yes. And of course, the numbers here are Penn State times 10. And so absolutely, I expect that. And what, of course, Tom Izzo, the men's basketball coach at Michigan State, Mark D'Antonio, the football coach, are also now being looked at in a new ESPN Outside the Lines report about sexual assault and how they handled it. And so the bottom line is when it rains, it pours. And Michigan State is now getting scrutiny that it should have probably received decades ago. But thankfully, it's getting it now.
Do you think, Christine, that other universities, other institutions are paying close attention to this, or are they saying, oh, no, that's not us?
Martin, they sure better be. Wow. I mean, if there's any lesson among many lessons, including we should be listening to children, listening to young athletes, and the adults failed these athletes. I think that those are the main things. But the fact that there was an unbelievable lesson that was sitting there just a few hundred miles away from Michigan State, and that was Penn State. And that the President Simon, looks at that Title IX report in 2014, or hears about it, doesn't even look into it, and a police investigation, and doesn't take it any further in her own brain, doesn't have the curiosity. Why wasn't she thinking about what had happened at Penn State just 2.5, 3 years before? That obviously was a huge mistake, and it cost her job.
And that is, I think, one of the mind-boggling parts of it is if you didn't pay attention to Penn State, you hope people will start paying attention to this now, certainly as well. Christine Brennan, always appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Still to come, Me Too survivors will be at the President's State of the Union speech next week. But will the President hear their message and address it? The founder of the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke, will join us live to discuss.
New year, new phones for the family. Join T-Mobile, and when you buy one of the latest Samsung Galaxy phones, get a Samsung Galaxy S8 free. Plus, unlimited family plans come with Netflix included.
Spectacular!
So you can watch all your Netflix favorites on your new Samsung phones. Whoa. Join the Un-carrier and get a Samsung Galaxy S8 free. All on America's best unlimited network.
Sometimes a cough gets in the way of a good night's sleep. That's when he needs Vicks Vapor Rub, proven cough medicine with 8 hours of vapors, so he can sleep. Vicks Vapor Rub. Good night, coughs.
At Joseph A. Bank's Super Saturday sale, save up to 80% on all clearance items. All suits, $199. All Traveler dress shirts, 3 for $99. Plus, all Traveler and 1905 sport coats and blazers, $139. The Super Saturday sale, only at Joseph A. Bank.
People would stare. Psoriasis does that.
It was tough getting out there on stage.
I wanted to be clear. I wanted it to last.
So I kept on fighting.
I found something that worked and keeps on working.
Now, they see me.
See me.
See if Cosentyx could make a difference for you. Cosentyx is proven to help people with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis find clear skin that can last. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting Cosentyx, you should be checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, or if you've received a vaccine or plan to. If you have inflammatory bowel disease, tell your doctor if symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions may occur.
Never give up.
See me.
See me.
Clear skin can last.
Don't hold back. Ask your dermatologist if Cosentyx can help you find clear skin that lasts.
It's a funny thing about the future. You don't wake up surrounded by jetpacks and robot dogs. The real future kind of sneaks up on you, until one day you find yourself plugging in your crossover like it's totally normal. Introducing the 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. It's gas, it's electric, it's the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid crossover. Lease an Outlander PHEV for as low as $259 a month for 36 months. Certain states qualify, or get 0% APR for 60 months.
Van Jones, tackling today's complex issues with perspective you can't get anywhere else. Tonight, Van sits down with Sean J.C. Carter, the one-on-one interview you don't want to miss. The Van Jones Show premieres tonight at 7 Eastern, only on CNN.
It starts with the ingredients. Made from scratch. Cooked to perfection. Great food is what you expect from a Greek diner, and that's what you'll find here at Andy's Diner. This is no ordinary menu, and this is no ordinary diner. Expansive menu choices, homemade. Experience 24 hours of truly delicious dining. Andy's Diner. It's time to raise your expectations in Conshohocken, Ben Salem, and Springhouse.
Team USA snowboarder Jamie Anderson saves it all for the slopes. Off the slope, she keeps saving with Xfinity Mobile.
The best cake ever.
It's a new kind of network that's included with her internet. She can get up to 5 lines of unlimited nationwide talk and text at no extra cost.
Oh.
So all she pays for is data.
Oh, yeah.
Because the only thing Jamie loves more than baking is saving money. Oh, yeah, and snowboarding. Choose by the gig or go unlimited. Xfinity Mobile, a new kind of network designed to save you money. Call, visit, or go to xfinitymobile.com today.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Closed captioning brought to you by OnlyMeso.com.
We offer a free book on mesothelioma. Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call 1-800-831-3700.
Well, we've been waiting for you here. Good morning, I'm Christy Paul.
And I'm Martin Savage, in for Victor Blackwell. Billionaire casino mogul and RNC finance chairman Steve Wynn is now in the middle of a sexual misconduct scandal. According to the Wall Street Journal, dozens of women say that Wynn forced them to perform sex acts when they worked for him. This morning, Wynn is calling those claims preposterous.
Meanwhile, Senate Democrats are trying to take steps to protect the special counsel in the Russia probe from the White House after major news outlets confirming, including CNN, confirmed that President Trump came close to firing Bob Mueller last year. So following in the footsteps of Hollywood actors, Democratic Congresswomen plan to wear all black to President Trump's State of the Union address. This is happening on Tuesday. And the reason is to show solidarity with the Me Too and Time's Up movements. Those have been drawing so much attention to the ongoing conversation about sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. In fact, some lawmakers are bringing survivors and activists as guests to the speech. Congresswoman Ann McClain-Custer, Congressman Mike Quigley, Congresswoman Jackie Speier, all bringing either survivors of sexual abuse or advocates fighting for the cause. So let's talk about this with the founder and activist Tarana Burke and co-chair for Women Vote Trump with Amy Kremer. Thank you both for being with us. Tarana, first I have to start with you because as I understand it, you were invited to go to the State of the Union and you declined the invitation. Why?
I did. Representative Speier invited me to go to the State of the Union and be her guest at the State of the Union, along with two of the other women who were on the Golden Globes red carpet with me. And we all three decided to decline, and instead we are having our own event, the State of Our Union, to talk about women's issues that are happening across the United States and the solidarity that has grown over the last year since this administration has come into place.
So you're not even going to watch the State of the Union?
Probably not.
Probably not. Amy, I know you'll be watching the State of the Union address.
I will.
Knowing that there will be advocates in the audience there, how do you think the president should he mention it in his speech? Will he?
Well, you know, this is a social movement sweeping the nation, and I'm glad these victims are coming out and having their voices heard. But, Christy, I honestly think that this is hypocrisy at its finest. And because these women, these Democratic men and women that are inviting these victims, it should be the I Knew movement and didn't do anything to help. They have remained silent. There's a sex hush fund where taxpayer dollars have been spent covering up conduct in Congress, and the people have a right to know.
It's true, and we have talked about that, but one doesn't absolve the other.
But
an I Knew movement doesn't absolve a Me Too movement.
But the thing is, I feel like these victims are being used as pawns, and they need to clean up their own house. How dare they go and sit and bring these victims, using them? And that's the other thing. They're trying to conflate this. This is the resistance movement, and there's a difference in Me Too and the resistance. I stand with the Me Too movement. I know women that have been victims of sexual assault. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily opposed to President Trump. And the Democrats in the resistance movement are opposed to President Trump. And that's their whole objective, is to oppose the president. I predict that there will be some outburst there or some scene caused because they are so resistant to the president. That's what this is really about. And I think it's unfortunate that they're being used as political pawns.
Do you believe the same?
No, I don't believe the same. This is really about survivors, and actually any woman that's a survivor of sexual violence would be opposed to the president, who is a self-described sexual predator. He is somebody who has said out his own mouth that how he treats women and how he preys upon women. He has several women who have come forward to bring allegations against him. So I don't see this as a political stunt, because it's Democrats and Republicans who have known. The people who use that fund come from both sides of the aisle. And so this is really about bringing to light the issue of sexual violence in our country.
I want to ask you, Tarana, I have to keep going because we have a couple of things that we have to get to here. Tarana, about the Steve Wynn accusations this morning of sexual misconduct there. He, of course, the finance chair for the RNC. What's your reaction to that news coming out this morning?
You know, I'm never surprised at these anymore. I think that every time somebody else is accused, there's a new question of, what do you feel about that, and are you surprised? And no, I'm not surprised. This is what we've seen as a pattern in powerful men who have access to wealth and privilege use it in this way oftentimes. So I'm not surprised at all.
Amy, you know, when Harvey Weinstein was accused of sexual assault, there were Republicans left and right saying you need to return the contributions. Any Democrats who had received major money from that man. Steve Wynn is the finance chair for the RNC. Do you anticipate, as we look forward ahead to midterms, do you anticipate that Republicans who received donations from him will also donate to charity and will do so publicly?
Well, I would think that if they do, they will do it publicly. I think we have to wait and see how this plays out. I mean,
do you think they should? Do you think they should return money from Steve Wynn?
Probably, yes, I do. I mean, listen, I think that we have had a problem with powerful men abusing women, and I'm glad that it's all coming out. I don't want it to sound like that, you know, I'm excusing their behavior. We have called for all of these Republicans and Democrats in Congress that have been accused of this, and there have been payouts. We've called for them all to resign. I don't care what their party is. This is about humanity and about respecting and treating others. So, you know, if Steve Wynn, in fact, did this, and I guess his board is doing an investigation now, and it's all going to come to light, we'll get to the bottom of it. But just because you're a Republican does not excuse your behavior. I want to say one thing, Christy, before we go, is that if, in fact, that this is not anti-Trump and this is not the resistance movement, then are any of Al Franken or John Conyers or Anthony Weiner's victims going to be in the audience of the State of the Union? Because I don't think they are, and they don't want to highlight the problem that they've had in the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, when this came out about John Conyers, Nancy Pelosi called him iconic. And so they try to excuse it.
And Jackie Spears called for him to step down.
Yeah, and Jackie Spears is covered up. I mean, she's known this for a long time, and she hasn't come out. She's been part of the problem covering up. You cover up for your career, that's not acceptable.
Okay.
What do you feel about your president? Should your president say something
Toronto,
about his own sexual misconduct?
Toronto, go ahead.
I'm saying you stand here representing Trump. You can talk about the Democrats all you want to. I haven't heard you say a word about the accusations against your president. We're at almost 20 of them now. He's self-described as a sexual predator. So if the Democrats have to come clean, your president has to come clean.
He is not.
Tarana Burke, Amy Kremer, I'm sorry we're out of time. A very important conversation. We will be watching State of the Union. We thank you both so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Texans took to the streets facing off in opposing protests.
Eye drops. It's eye therapy. Dry eye symptoms are caused by a salt imbalance. Therateer's unique electrolyte formula quickly restores the natural balance, so your eyes will thank you. More than eye drops, dry eye therapy. Therateers.
You wouldn't feel good not knowing the price here. Don't let it happen when you buy your diabetes test strips. With the AccuCheck Guide Simple Pay program, you pay the same low price, all without having to go through insurance. Plus, they come in a spill-resistant vial along with a free meter. Skip the guessing game and focus on your health, not the cost. Make saving simple today at simplepaysaves.com.
As long as there is fear, as long as there is curiosity, as long as there are undiscovered corners of the earth, and as long as there is willingness and desire, then you are capable of more. Hurry in to test drive the all-new BMW X3 today and receive exceptional offers.
Good questions lead to good answers. Our advisors can help you find both. Talk to one today and see why we're bullish on the future. Yours.
It's time to get your glow on. New Aveeno Positively Radiant Body Lotion with the moisture-rich power of soy. It transforms dull, dry skin to leave you glowing. New Positively Radiant Body Collection from Aveeno.
Every night in America, people make something for dinner. But some of us make something much more.
Mom would be proud.
With Blue Apron, any night is a chance to see what cooking can do.
If your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's symptoms are holding you back, and your current treatment hasn't worked well enough, it may be time for a change. Ask your doctor about Entyvio, the only biologic developed and approved just for UC and Crohn's. Entyvio works at the site of inflammation in the GI tract and is clinically proven to help many patients achieve both symptom relief and remission. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, serious, potentially fatal brain infection caused by a virus, may be possible. This condition has not been reported with Entyvio. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, experience frequent infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Liver problems can occur with Entyvio. If your UC or Crohn's treatment isn't working for you, ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
No matter the weather, stay protected all season long with floor liners from WeatherTech. Laser measured to protect the front, back, even up the sides. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com. WeatherTech, the ultimate protection for your vehicle. Proudly made in America.
So they took opposite sides of the street, shouted back and forth at each other.
But what those opposing protesters didn't know, and this is back in 2016, was that Russian trolls had organized both of the events on Facebook, pitting both sides against each other. And now the question is, will we see more of this in the upcoming midterms? Joining us to talk about it all, CNN national security analyst Samantha Vinograd. Good to see you.
Good morning.
All right, so I just find this, first of all, mind-boggling, and it does seem to be a clear example of how you can influence and cause protests. So what do you make of all of this? Will we see more?
I think that we will, and this latest thread isn't surprising. We have to remember that Russia's operation didn't start with Donald Trump and certainly didn't end with the 2016 election. This operation is long-standing and it's ongoing. We have to be clear that Putin sees the world through a KGB Cold War lens. His goal is to sow divisions in the United States and in Western Europe and to create confusion as part of a broader effort to undermine liberal democracy. And frankly, he's using every tool in his toolkit, and he's relying very heavily on Russian superiority in the digital space. This involves everything from weaponizing information and spreading disinformation and misinformation to relying on bots and trolls, which have proved very efficient to polarize America. This includes messages about particular candidates, as well as just promoting and amplifying efforts that create divisions within the United States. And so that's been evident in various protests and messages related to the alt-right and the alt-left, as well as, by the way, promoting messages about conspiracy theories that really confuse the Americans and undermine the credibility of our institutions. We saw this play out over the last few weeks with the release of the memo conspiracy.
Yeah, let's listen together here, too, to a top Putin critic and a political rival, what he said of Russians' election meddling.
I have no doubt that the Kremlin did everything it could to influence these elections, and that there were indeed hacks on the DNC and of emails. This is something they've been doing inside this country for a very long time. I have also been a victim of such attacks, fake documents. This happens all the time. But honestly, I really doubt it actually had any impact on the presidential elections. This is a good thing about the authoritarian leaders. Whatever they do it ineffectively. Of course, they are trying to stick their noses into elections. They will continue trying to influence situations using propaganda and stirring up conflicts in the US and Europe. But you shouldn't overestimate the level of this influence.
So this is what's interesting. He talks about not underestimating the influence, but he acknowledges, and this is the gray area of all of this, that we don't know the impact of these efforts thus far. How confident are you that these kinds of efforts will be spotted and will be deterred as we move into midterms?
Christy, that's a great question, because every day that goes by, we're getting closer to the 2018 elections. And frankly, the balance is tipping more in Russia's favor in the digital space. I don't think we know exactly what kind of impact Russian influence had in the 2016 election, but what we do know is that they're very efficient in spreading disinformation and misinformation about particular candidates. And as we get closer to 2018 and as we work to protect our democracy, we have to start thinking about how we fight back. You know, during the Cold War, the United States and Russia engaged in a lot of conventional military confrontations. Those confrontations have now moved online, and we've seen other countries like Holland, the United Kingdom, France, and Sweden take specific steps to fight back. The UK has set up a new national security unit to identify disinformation and misinformation. France, Macron just announced a new law in the run-up to the French elections to do exactly the same thing. And at this point, the difference between the Cold War and today is that I don't really feel like we're fighting back yet.
Right, yeah. This is very troubling. We used to worry about Russia as being a military adversary. This is a whole different playing field.
It's a whole new world, yes.
Yeah. Samantha Vinogradov, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Samantha. So civil rights groups are taking the Education Department to court, saying rules that Secretary Betsy DeVos issued discriminate against survivors of sexual assault on campus.
Successful people have one thing in common. They read more. How do they find the time? With Audible. Audible has the world's largest selection of audiobooks. For just $14.95 a month, you get a credit, good for any audiobook. And you can roll your credits to the next month if you don't use them. Audible members get free, no-hassle exchanges and use the mobile app to listen anytime, anywhere. Start a 30-day trial and your first audiobook is free. Listening is the new reading. Text audio 22 to 500-500 to start listening today.
I don't want to lie down. I refuse to lie down.
Why suffer? Stand up to chronic migraine with Botox. Botox is the only treatment for chronic migraine shown to actually prevent headaches and migraines before they even start. Botox is for adults with chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. It's injected by a doctor once every 12 weeks and is covered by most insurance.
Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Don't take Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, and medications including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
With the Botox Savings Program, most people with commercial insurance pay nothing out of pocket. Talk to your doctor and visit BotoxCMSavings.com to enroll.
Why create something this extravagant? Or make a back seat that feels nothing like a back seat? Why give it every feature you could want, along with a few you didn't know you needed? It's simple. You can build a car, or you can build a Cadillac. Come in now for this exceptional offer on the Cadillac CT6. Get this low-mileage lease on this 2018 Cadillac CT6 from around $549 per month. Visit your local Cadillac dealer.
My experience with USAA has been excellent. They always refer to me as Master Sergeant. They really appreciate the military family, and it really shows.
We've got auto insurance, homeowners insurance.
I had an accident with a vehicle. I actually called USAA before we called the police. USAA was very hands-on, very quick, very prompt. I feel like we're being handled as people that actually have a genuine need. We're the Weber family, and we're USAA members for life.
USAA. Get your insurance quote today.
She was the victim of the most bizarre kidnapping in American history. Was she a hostage? Or was she a terrorist? The radical story of Patty Hearst premieres Sunday, February 11th at 9 on CNN.
Renew your sense of wonder in the Caribbean. For a limited time, enjoy 2 free perks like complimentary Wi-Fi and drinks, plus savings up to $300 when you book now during the Celebrity Cruises Sail Beyond event.
Rustic wire brush finish, solid pine, choice of dresser or chesser. This must be my Austin bedroom set, only $9.99 complete. Different bedroom, similar wire brush finish, but something's not right. Where's the chesser? Oh, good. It's just my competition's overly priced similar bedroom set.
Without Bob, it's just discount furniture.
Renew your sense of wonder in the Caribbean. For a limited time, enjoy 2 free perks like complimentary Wi-Fi and drinks, plus savings up to $300 when you book now during the Celebrity Cruises Sail Beyond event.
President Trump, the State of the Union Address. Special live coverage starts Tuesday night at 5 Eastern.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-900-0202.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now for free information.
The Education Department and Secretary Betsy DeVos are facing a lawsuit over her policy on sexual assaults on college and university campuses. A group of civil rights advocacy groups filed suit this week challenging the Secretary's plans to end Obama-era guidelines on how to judge sexual violence cases under Title IX.
Now, advocates say the changes have already had a chilling effect on survivors who are coming forward. So CNN Politics senior writer Juana Summers back with us here. I want to thank you for sticking around. I want to read a statement for everybody from the advocacy groups that filed this suit that said they're suing to stop the Department of Education's new and extreme Title IX policy, alleging it was issued unlawfully and based on discriminatory beliefs about women and girls as survivors of sexual violence in violation of the Constitution. So let me ask you, help us remember what the Obama-era rules were and what changes are going to be made to that. How does it truly affect these students?
Sure. So if you remember back to 2011 and 2014, the Obama administration issued several sets of guidances that really opened up this process. It was hailed by groups like the one you just mentioned as strengthening rules for survivors and making it easier for them. It's something called the preponderance of the evidence standard is really what we're talking about here. And now we're in 2017, fast forward to September, and under the Trump administration, Betsy DeVos rolled back those guidelines, and instead we're looking at it a standard called the clear and convincing evidence standard. That means there's a higher threshold. 2 other concrete things that I think it's really important for our viewers to know about this is that under the interim guidance that Betsy DeVos rolled out in 2017, now there's no timeline that these cases have to be finished in. That was something that was involved in the Obama-era guidance. This new 2017 ruling also allows these cases to be settled with a mediator between the accuser and the accused. I spoke to a number of these civil rights groups earlier this week, and they say that there's already been a chilling effect on campuses just in that short time, that victims and survivors aren't as willing to come forward because they see the deck as stacked against them, and they don't see a process that works that allows them to get justice, guys.
Why do you think this decision was made to roll back these changes? I mean, was it just because it was done by a Democratic president?
I don't really think that's it. You heard the education secretary address this in the speech that she gave last year, in which she announced that she was planning on withdrawing these guidelines. She says that she thinks these horrible crimes do need to be prosecuted and addressed on campuses. That said, she wants to make sure it's a process that's fair to everyone. A number of these groups that represent the largely male accused people who are accused of committing these crimes, they say that the standard that the Obama administration set out, the bar is too high. The process isn't fair to them. This guideline, there's been a political firestorm kind of around this issue. So it'll be really interesting to see when Secretary DeVos rolls out her finalized guidelines, which she says she plans to do after a formal comment period, what those final guidelines look like. I know this is something that schools are still grappling with, quite frankly, what to do with, because the interim guidelines released by the education secretary back in September do conflict with some of the existing things that are currently in place at the department.
I know this has been a controversy from the beginning. Let's listen to DeVos in September when she was announcing these changes here.
The truth is that the system established by the prior administration has failed too many students. Survivors, victims of a lack of due process, and campus administrators have all told me that the current approach does a disservice to everyone involved. That's why we must do better, because the current approach isn't working. Washington has burdened schools with increasingly elaborate and confusing guidelines that even lawyers find difficult to understand and navigate.
So are there colleges, she said that they were saying it was confusing and it didn't work for them, but are there colleges that are proposing they're not going to listen to this?
There are some colleges who have said that. I remember back in September talking to a number of Title IX administrators, and Yale University comes to mind. You know, they issued a letter to their student community saying that they really plan to stay the course despite the interim guidance given by the education secretary and the department. But I think that there's a really important point to make is that there is a lot of confusion around this. Now we have this interim guidance out, and we're hearing from schools across the country who, quite frankly, don't know how to proceed in these crimes that really get to the core of the student's experience on campus. A number of these social justice organizations were telling me, you know, these are really definitive experiences for these largely young women victims that can really change what their college experience is like. It's a very personal crime, and the administrators don't know how to best help these students, how to best educate these offenses when they do happen. So I think they're really looking for more guidance in a more formal setting from the department as to what to do next.
And Juana, one of the things I heard that was troubling to many civil rights organizations was that there was talk of mediation. What does that mean, and why is it controversial?
I think it's rather controversial because rather than having a formal review board or someone from the university kind of sit down and make a decision as to what happens, these mediations in some cases can put the accuser right in the same room with the accused, something that I think is a little different. One of the things that's really hard is that every campus handles this a little bit differently. There's no standard across the board. And I think that's something that a lot of these civil rights groups really want to see.
All right. Juana Summers, thanks for breaking this down for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All righty. That is it for us at the moment. We're going to see you again at 10 o'clock Eastern for CNN Newsroom.
So it's just a brief break. Smerconish is coming up right after this brief break.
Hold together. A little left. Easy. All right. We've all got places to go.
Washington crossing the Delaware Turnpike? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much money Sean saved by switching to Geico.
Big man with a horn.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Mary Lou Retton, gold medal gymnast for Australian Dream.
I tried Australian Dream over 3 years ago because I wasn't getting results from other products. It provides temporary relief for my minor arthritis pain and muscle aches. I tell people to give it a try. If you aren't satisfied, they'll give you a full refund. What do you have to lose?
Australian Dream provides temporary relief from joint pain and muscle aches, and it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. Buy Australian Dream in stores or online today.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to create a better visitor experience.
Improve our workflow.
Attract new customers. That's when Fast Signs recommended Fleet Graphics.
Yeah, now business is rolling in. Get started at fastsigns.com.
New year, new phones for the family. Join T-Mobile, and when you buy one of the latest Samsung Galaxy phones, get a Samsung Galaxy S8 free. Plus, unlimited family plans come with Netflix included.
Spectacular!
So you can watch all your Netflix favorites on your new Samsung phones. Whoa! Join the Un-carrier and get a Samsung Galaxy S8 free. All on America's best unlimited network.
Importing ivory is illegal, so it's no surprise I get randomly searched when I travel. But the protein in pistachios helps keep my spirits up, which makes this strip search a little less humiliating. That's not ivory.
In the early 80s, two guys were born. Their names were Jeff and Andy. They grew up, developed facial hair, and one day while buying razors, they wondered,
why do razors cost so much?
Jeff and Andy were confused, so they started their own razor company. They even bought a factory in Germany.
They bought my factory.
They made razors that looked like they were designed on Earth, not in space. And by selling directly to you on the internet, Harry's can offer a quality shave at a fair price. Go to harrys.com now to redeem your trial offer. Harry's, the shaving company that's fixing shaving.
I was out here smoking instead of being there for my son's winning shot. That was it for me. That's why I'm quitting with Nicorette.
Only Nicorette Mini has a patented fast-dissolving formula. It starts to relieve sudden cravings fast.
Every great why needs a great how.
Van Jones, tackling today's complex issues with perspective you can't get anywhere else. Tonight, Van sits down with Sean J.C. Carter, the one-on-one interview you don't want to miss. The Van Jones Show premieres tonight at 7 Eastern, only on CNN.
The biggest season of Fixer Upper is here.
here.
What? We're taking it a whole nother direction.
This is going to be one of a kind.
With fresh new designs.
Love the stairwell. Pretty impressive.
Are y'all ready to
check out your fixer-upper?
Oh my God, look at this. All new Fixer Upper, Tuesday at 9 on HGTV.
There's no better time than now to visit your Hyundai dealer for huge savings on a new Hyundai Sonata, Elantra, Tucson, or Santa Fe Sport. See your Hyundai dealer today or visit buyhyundai.com.
Untouchable value and tremendous choice. Two things you're guaranteed to find at My Bob's Discount Furniture every day. Like my Navigator, glove soft and durable performance fabric. Bobopedic memory foam seating for extra comfort. Stylish two-tone design. Get the sofa and love seat for only $9.99. Or you can power them up with push-button power reclining. Both pieces only $11.99. Untouchable value and tremendous choice every day.
Without Bob, it's just discount furniture.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. We welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. So, are we headed for a face-to-face showdown between the president and special counsel Robert Mueller? Or, despite the president's words, might he never testify? I'll ask lawyers from both defense and prosecution in the investigation of Bill Clinton what lessons they learned about putting a president under oath. Plus, the Justice Department wants census takers to ask people if they're citizens. What impact might that one question have on the balance of state legislative and congressional power? And the nation was transfixed by the trial of the doctor who abused young female athletes. But did his sentencing judge overstep her legal role with words like this?
I would allow someone, or many people, to do to him what he did to others.
And everybody loves the driving apps that show them how to escape traffic jams, except the towns that get used as shortcuts. We've got the mayor who shut down his roads to out-of-towners. Is that legal? But first, what a week with regard to the Mueller probe. Just before departing for Davos, the president surprised everybody, including his own lawyers, by saying that he was looking forward to testifying under oath.
There's been no collusion whatsoever. There's no obstruction whatsoever. And I'm looking forward to it.
Now, almost immediately, he qualified that by saying that he'd have to check with his lawyer, and his attorney, Ty Cobb, then downplayed the offer. Later, another Trump attorney, John Dowd, told CNN he's the one who'll decide if the president will sit for an interview with Mueller's team and that no decision has been made. And then came news that President Trump ordered the White House counsel to fire Mueller back in June, citing three reasons that, to me, seemed awfully thin. They included the fact that Mueller once resigned from a Trump golf course over a fee dispute, and that Mueller most recently worked for the law firm that previously represented Jared Kushner. The first hardly seems grounds to charge bias against a former head of the FBI, and the second, if it suggests any bias, would seem to be in favor of the president. This reminded me of the circumstances surrounding the firing of James Comey. Now, recall that in that instance, the stated reason for the firing, as evidenced in a memo written by Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, was Comey's mishandled investigation of Hillary's emails. Quote, "As you and I have discussed, however, I cannot defend the director's handling of the conclusion of the investigation of Secretary Clinton's emails, and I do not understand his refusal to accept the nearly universal judgment that he was mistaken." That was never credible as a reason why Trump would fire Comey, and it was belied by a subsequent interview that the president gave to Lester Holt. And here's the potential significance. Intent is the key ingredient in any potential charge for obstruction of justice, as in, did the president have a corrupt motive when seeking to thwart a criminal investigation? Asserting false reasons for the firing of Comey and then Mueller suggests he was hiding his real rationale. If the reason for Comey's firing and the order that Mueller be fired was that the president, to use his words, was just fighting back against an unfounded probe that was looking for collusion where it never existed, ginned up by a fake dossier, with the support of deflated Democrats and an antagonistic press, then why not say so? Why create pretext when truth is on your side? The president absolutely has a right to defend himself. It's not a crime for the subject of a criminal probe to assert their innocence or provide additional information to exonerate themselves. But where a person takes steps with intent to corruptly impede or stop such an investigation, that can amount to obstruction of justice. And now things are about to get really interesting. The president said that his meeting with Mueller could take place within the next 2 to 3 weeks. That suggests that Mueller is wrapping up his probe. Although the president has plenty of private sector experience with litigation, I think it's legally and politically dangerous for President Trump to be interviewed or more formally testify under oath. From a lawyer's standpoint, he's an unpredictable client. And that encounter with the press just before he left for Davos is just an inkling of what he's like when he thinks he's right. Trump is loquacious, and he believes that he can win over anybody if given a shot. And that's a hazardous combination when a special counsel is the one asking the questions, which is why we're entering a critical phase. If there's an upcoming encounter between Trump and Mueller, what will it look like? Where will it be? Who'll be there? Will Mueller himself conduct the questioning? And will the president be under oath? Well, I have two perfectly credentialed guests joining me now, two veteran lawyers from opposite sides of another presidential inquiry that gripped the nation. Solomon Weisenberg, deputy independent counsel in the Clinton intern investigation, who questioned President Clinton the time that Clinton famously answered, "It depends on what the definition of is." And Greg Craig, former White House counsel to both presidents Clinton and Obama, who represented and quarterbacked President Clinton's impeachment defense. Greg Craig, if you represented this president, how willing would you be to produce him to Bob Mueller?
Well, Mike, I'd be very reluctant. President Trump, like every other American citizen, has the right to remain silent. And to waive that right and go into either testimony under oath or for an interview puts not only his personal freedom and future in jeopardy, but it also puts the office in play. I think the factors that went into the decision and the advice that President Clinton made in August of 1998 to testify in front of the grand jury are the same factors that are being considered by Mr. Trump's lawyers today. And I think any lawyer is going to be very, very concerned about exposing his client to examination while he is the subject or the target of a grand jury investigation.
So let me ask the direct question. Do you anticipate that President Trump at some point in the future will be invoking his Fifth Amendment rights?
Well, I think they're clearly going to be considering it. I don't know that he's going to invoke his constitutional rights, but they will clearly consider that and make a decision based on their own judgment. So I can't tell you that he's going to invoke his constitutional rights. He may decide for political reasons that he won't, as did President Clinton, and that he'll go in and answer questions. In that event, I think the lawyers will be trying to control the topics and the time and the various ways in which the interrogation takes place. For example, they might say, look, we're happy to answer questions about the campaign, but we're not happy to answer questions about his finances. We're not happy to answer questions about his performance as president. But go ahead and ask him questions about what you're supposed to be investigating, which is Russian interference in the campaign. That may be one kind of way that the lawyers try to control the way in which the interview takes place.
Saul, on this same issue, where do you see it headed? Will President Trump at some point in the future invoke a Fifth Amendment right?
Well, he certainly should, and I agree completely with Greg that it's a very perilous situation for him. And in fact, I think he's in much more danger than President Clinton was, because when President Clinton sat down, we had already let him know about the dress, so there was no point in him trying to deny a relationship. Whereas I can guarantee you that Mueller, who is run a very tight ship, has found a lot of information that President Trump knows nothing about. If there's anyone who can pull off, any politician who can pull off as a PR matter, invoking the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, it's President Trump, and he's kind of set the agenda for that by attacking Mueller over the last few months and saying this is a witch hunt and it's a bogus investigation. And he can go in front of the American people and he can say, look, the Supreme Court has said since the 1950s that the privilege against self-incrimination protects the innocent as well as the guilty. I think this is a gotcha investigation. They're looking for a way to get me, and I'm going to invoke my precious Fifth Amendment right that protects us all.
Well, Sal, you have given to me both a legal and a practical answer. Greg Craig, on the practical answer, all I can think of as Sal is offering that explanation is the way in which President Trump hammered Hillary and more so the FBI for not putting her under oath, which I think would make it very difficult for him now to be invoking a Fifth Amendment right.
Well, I think you can overestimate the issue of the oath or not the oath. If he appears and answers questions from a federal official, whether it's a prosecutor or an FBI agent, he is in jeopardy of violating the law if they believe he didn't tell the truth. That's Title 18 United States Code 1001. So the oath can be inflated in its importance. I agree with Saul that if he goes in and testifies, he's putting his own future in jeopardy as well as the office. As you know, Mike, one of the first article of impeachment against President Clinton was the allegation that he did not testify truthfully in the grand jury when Saul was asking him questions. So that's an impeachable offense.
Saul, speaking of which, I want to roll the tape and ask a question about this famous moment. Play it.
Whether or not Mr. Bennett knew of your relationship with Ms. Lewinsky. The statement that there was no sex of any kind, in any manner, shape, or form with President Clinton was an utterly false statement. Is that correct?
Yeah. It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yes. By the way, Sal, were you ready for that answer? I mean, did that catch you by surprise as much as it did the rest of us when we finally got to see it and hear about it?
It caught me by surprise because I think that the president had done, generally speaking, a masterful job in the questioning, in the grand jury questioning, and I thought this was his one mistake and his biggest mistake. I just think it came off sounding very, very poorly.
So you asked that question, that line of question of President Clinton. Has Bob Mueller now been taken out of the prospect of questioning President Trump himself because of the revelation by the Times and CNN and the Post that President Trump did indeed give an order to fire Mueller? Saul?
Oh, not at all. I would expect that Mueller will be there. Unlike Ken Starr, Mueller has who really had very little involvement in the actual questioning. He asked some questions related to constitutional issues. Bob Mueller has spent his whole life in law enforcement and prosecution and with the FBI, so he's certainly capable of participating substantively, but I think that the bulk of the questioning will be handled by his top lieutenants. But I don't think this would prohibit him at all from asking questions.
Greg Craig, if you were representing this president in anticipation of some kind of an exchange with Mueller or Mueller's staff, what's on your agenda right now? What are you looking for? What do you want this process to look like?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Mike, I would like to know with as much precision and detail as possible as to what the topics are so that I can prepare the president. The president is going to be concerned about making statements in response to these questions that are not inconsistent with previous statements that he's made. Not inconsistent with the testimony of other individuals. And as Saul said, the president is not going to know, for example, what General Flynn has said about X, Y, and Z. The prosecutors will know what General Flynn said about X, Y, and Z. So there's a challenge here for the president to be perhaps precise, perhaps abbreviated in his answers, and prepared for some specific areas, just the way I agree with Saul that President Clinton, when he was testifying in front of the grand jury, was one of the best prepared witnesses in the history of trial practice. He did a very good job. And that videotape that you just saw was one of the most important things to the American public to show exactly how well Clinton had done in his testimony.
Saul, all Americans have had the opportunity to see your questioning of President Clinton. Will Americans get to see or read whatever questions are put to President Trump?
Oh, I think so. I think if he ends up deciding to give testimony, that it will probably be recorded. It will not be grand jury testimony. It'll be in an informal setting. I completely agree with Greg that the oath is not significant as a legal matter. Martha Stewart wasn't under oath when she got indicted for making false statements. I would imagine that it's going to be ultimately released. It's not as clear as it was in our case. It was part of an sealed impeachment report,
not only fruitful in this case potentially, but in other cases in the future.
Here,
we looked at that back again in the Boston Marathon case at the wife of the older brother who had lived with them. I mean, they built those bombs in those pressure cookers somewhere. So what do people know, and when did they know it? I would predict that this investigation is going to take not days or weeks. This investigation is going to take months.
It'll come out.
Saul, Greg cannot thank you enough. We really appreciate your being here on an important subject.
To elevate this to a federal level where there could be federal charges.
I want to know what you're all thinking.
That once you
go to my
have
website, smirconish.com, and answer this whole question.
Getting it into the terrorism realm,
or under
that
oath,
what you're ultimately dealing with is the federal government is looking for a way to be able to prosecute things federally. Obviously, in Boston, you had weapons of mass destruction. You had bombs.
Courtesy of my Twitter feed and Facebook,
you don't really have bombs
what has
that
come
are
in during the
used.
course
You
of the
have
first
guns.
segment of the program.
But what you
his ego will make him testify. He can't help himself. He thinks he can beat Mueller. He'll go against his lawyers. Still, that's exactly what I was getting to. I'm thinking, I've represented many incorrigible clients as an attorney.
If there are other
and
people
I know the MO
does it have
of
to
those
be
who
a
say,
federal prosecution?
I got this. I can handle this. And by the way,
prosecution.
let's give
but
the
these
president
joint
credit.
terrorism
It has
task
served him
forces,
well
which
through
have
this
been
part of his life.
formed over
Whether
the
it gets him
last
through the
number
next
of
chapter
years since September
remains
11th,
to be seen.
2001,
America was
they are
riveted
really
when
fully
156
functioning.
witnesses
And you
testified
have
in court
partnership with the
against the
FBI
doctor
and with the
who
local
abused
police.
young female
And the
athletes.
one in
But when the
Los
judge
Angeles that would
editorialized
cover
during
this
sentencing,
area
did
is
she
one
go
of the
too far?
great joint terrorism task forces. There has been an enormous amount of cooperation amongst those agencies over the years. As you know, I lived there and saw it close up and firsthand from 2002 to 2009.
There's a vacation at the end of every week. Whatever type of weekender you are, don't let another weekend pass you by. Get the lowest price when you book at Hilton.com.
Something's going on at Schwab.
Oh, really? Thank you. Clients? Well, J.D. Power did just rank them highest in investor satisfaction with full-service brokerage firms.
Again. And online equity trades only $4.95. I mean, you can't have low cost and be full service. It's impossible.
It's like having your cake and eating it too.
Ask your broker if they offer award-winning full service and low costs.
How am I going to explain this?
If you don't like their answer, ask again at Schwab. Schwab, a modern approach to wealth management.
Touch is how we communicate with those we love. But when your psoriasis is bad, does it ever get in the way? Embrace the chance of 100% clear skin with Taltz. Taltz is proven to help people with moderate to severe psoriasis achieve completely clear skin. With Taltz, up to 90% of patients had a significant improvement of their psoriasis plaques. In fact, 4 out of 10 even achieved completely clear skin. Don't use if you're allergic to Taltz. Before starting, you should be checked for tuberculosis. Taltz may increase risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or have symptoms, or if you've received a vaccine or plan to. Inflammatory bowel disease can happen with Taltz, including worsening of symptoms. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Ready for a chance at 100% clear skin? Ask your doctor about Taltz today and go to Taltz.com to learn how to pay as little as $5 a month.
Okay, folks, let's get the lady of the house back on her feet and help her feel more strength and energy in just 2 weeks.
The complete balanced nutrition of Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure, always be you.
Critics and audiences agree. 12 Strong is everything a modern-day war epic should be.
This is from the towers.
Smart and emotionally charged.
We're fighting with horsemen against tanks.
Oh, God. It's a true story that needs to be told. 12 Strong. Rated R.
From 5-star gourmet restaurants to laid-back fish shacks. From a meal with an epic view to an intimate culinary affair. If you can't find something great to eat in the Florida Keys, you can always order online. The Florida Keys and Key West.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-900-0202.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now for free information.
The nation was riveted this week by an amazing courtroom drama when 156 accusers, including some former U.S. Olympians, tearfully and defiantly spoke at the sentencing of the doctor who pled guilty to molesting young female athletes. Though the doctor, Larry Nassar, had only pled guilty to molesting 7 victims, Judge Rosemary Aquilina opened the courtroom to anybody wishing to speak, including other victims of Dr. Nassar, not part of the official case. When sentencing Nassar to 40 to 175 years in jail, the judge told him it was a death sentence, and she didn't stop there.
Our Constitution does not allow for cruel and unusual punishment. I would allow someone, or many people, to do to him what he did to others.
And that, said some people, including my next guest, was beyond the pale. Joining me now is Rachel Marshall, Deputy Public Defender at the Alameda County office in Oakland. She wrote this piece for Vox under the headline, "The Moment the Judge in the Larry Nassar Case Crossed a Line." Rachel, I believe and agree with everything that the judge said. And as an attorney, I agree with everything that you have written. I mean, the point is, she should have left those kind of comments to somebody like me in my capacity as a television or radio commentator, right?
Absolutely. There's only one person in the courtroom who is not to be an advocate for either side. One person who is cloaked in neutrality, and that is the judge. And for the judge to make herself an advocate for the victims in the midst of a sentencing hearing is inappropriate and calls into question our entire justice system. It poses a threat to the fairness of our institutions.
Do you take issue with the way in which she conducted this sentencing process in addition to the comments that we've just played and that you and others have noted? In other words, substantively here, was there anything else about this process that you call into question?
Yes, I mean, I think throughout the sentencing hearing, even prior to making those comments, she clearly aligned herself with the victims, often speaking to them as though they were her confidant, she was their confidant, and telling them that they were superheroes and expressing compassion, which of course all of us feel. The victims in this case went through extreme trauma and are courageous for coming forward and speaking. But it's not appropriate for the judge in the midst of a sentencing hearing where she is supposed to still be open to hearing the entire evidence presented, for her to already so clearly being on one side and to show such allegiance to that side. That's inappropriate.
And as a result, do you believe now there are grounds for appeal on the part of Dr. Nassar because of the conduct of this judge?
It's hard to say. Certainly, I would argue that as if I were his lawyer, but I don't know Michigan law specifically. Obviously, this was a guilty plea, but a judge still has to consider the appropriate factors in sentencing. She's not free to use bias or any sort of personal feelings in making a discretionary sentence.
So yesterday I read aloud on my SiriusXM program from the piece you published at Vox, and I said that I agreed with your sentiments, and of course I got phone calls from some who said you've gone soft and you're a liberal and all you're doing is covering up and supporting now a pedophile. I tried to explain the point that you're making. I guess my point to you is I can only imagine, if that's the result I got on radio, what you've heard since publishing your opinion. Tell me.
Absolutely. And let me be very clear. I am in no way defending Nassar's conduct, nor am I attacking the victims who I feel tremendous compassion for. But I think the difference is the roles that we have to respect in our system. If we can't trust judges to be fair, how can we have a fair system? And I also want to note that I did receive a number of comments suggesting that my critique of the judge had something to do with her being a woman, which couldn't be farther from the truth. If anything, I think it would be sexist to hold a woman judge to a lower standard than any other judges. And I have great esteem for judges, and that's why I expect them to behave appropriately under the Constitution and under their guidelines under the law.
Right. If I, as a guy, had written that which you published at Vox, I can only imagine what the hue and cry would have been, that here I was somehow standing up for the pedophile when that, too, would have misunderstood the point. You get the final word.
Of course. Again, it's really important to remember that this is about a judge being should be a neutral person in the courtroom, and we cannot make excuses and decide that there are some cases where it's okay for a judge to abandon that role. We need judges to be fair in all cases. That's how we protect all of our rights in the future.
Rachel, thank you so much for writing what you wrote and for being here as well.
Thank you.
Let's see what's coming in on my Twitter feed and Facebook page. What do we have, Catherine? A couple of tweets. Smirkanish, the judge's editorial was an absolute disgrace. It was fraught with a gratuitous performance for the cameras. Instead of the substantive reasons behind this man's sentence, it was completely unprofessional and could be grounds for an appeal. The real gold standard. Can I say, I also wonder, am I the only one who was thinking of Judge Ito when I was watching that? How much of an influence did that camera? I'm all for cameras and accessibility in the courtroom, but every once in a while they turn somebody into a Hollywood star or would be, and I think that the cameras play a role in that regard. One more if I've got time for it. What does it say? Smirkanish, men just don't get it. I can't read other tweets, but there's a female judge litigator thinking this judge was wrong to speak at the sentencing. He's been convicted. I don't see the problem. Hey, Jen, let me repeat this. First of all, I love your handle. I'll be into that later tonight. The guy's a dirtbag. I agree with everything Judge Aquilina said. Everything. And listen to me here on CNN. That's what you'll get from me. No, the issue that Rachel raised is whether she appropriately, the judge, was the one who should have been saying those things. That's the role for the prosecutor in a scenario like this. Can't have it. Still to come, when the census takers count heads in 2020, they may be asking a new question about whether you're a citizen. And I'll explain how this could change legislative boundaries and how one small town is fighting traffic jams by closing more than 60 roads to out-of-towners. Is that legal? And how far can a town go?
I have type 2 diabetes. I'm trying to manage my A1C. Then I learned type 2 diabetes puts me at greater risk for heart attack or stroke. Can one medicine help treat both blood sugar and cardiovascular risk? I asked my doctor. She told me about non-insulin Victoza. Victoza is not only proven to lower A1C and blood sugar, but for people with type 2 diabetes treating their cardiovascular disease, Victoza is also approved to lower the risk of major CV events, such as heart attack, stroke, or death. While not for weight loss, Victoza may help you lose some weight.
Victoza is not for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not take Victoza if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Victoza or any of its ingredients. Stop taking Victoza and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck or symptoms of a serious allergic reaction such as rash, swelling, difficulty breathing or swallowing. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. So stop taking Victoza and call your doctor right away if you have severe pain in your stomach area. Tell your doctor your medical history. Gallbladder problems have happened in some people. Tell your doctor right away if you get symptoms. Taking Victoza with the sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Common side effects are nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, decreased appetite, indigestion, and constipation. Side effects can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
Change the course of your treatment. Ask your doctor about Victoza.
an island, surrounded by warm, clear water, and a million ways to enjoy it. It's amazing you'll ever have time to come up for air. Key West. Close to perfect, far from normal.
I know when I hand them the keys to their first car, it's going to be scary, but I also know that we're going to have USAA insurance for both my boys, something that they're not even going to have to think of. It's just going to be in the family. We're the Tennies, and we're USAA members for life.
Are you worried about maintaining healthy blood pressure levels? Now, there's a once-a-day supplement called Berkeley Life to help maintain normal, healthy blood pressure.
Berkeley Life, a 100% drug-free way to maintain normal, healthy blood pressure levels and boost energy. Available at these fine retailers.
Some people might try to tell you that this is an apple. It might even start as a joke. But when they say it over and over and over again, and people start to believe it, it's only a matter of time until someone gets hurt.
It starts with the ingredients, made from scratch, cooked to perfection. Great food is what you expect from a Greek diner, and that's what you'll find here at Andy's Diner. This is no ordinary menu, and this is no ordinary diner. Expansive menu choices, homemade. Experience 24 hours of truly delicious dining. Andy's Diner. It's time to raise your expectations in Conshohocken, Bensalem, and Springhouse.
Team USA speed skater Joey Mantilla has speed on the ice.
I've got 3 speeds: fast, faster, and fasterest.
And the speed to stream everywhere with Xfinity Mobile, America's largest, most reliable 4G LTE with the most Wi-Fi hotspots. And it's included with his internet, giving him the fastest speeds and the best in-home Wi-Fi experience.
Shh, I'm trying to watch something here, man.
Xfinity is America's best internet provider according to speedtest.net. Get the fastest speeds and up to 5 lines of Xfinity Mobile included. Click, call, or visit a store today to learn more. The Van Jones Show premieres tonight at 7 Eastern on CNN.
If the Justice Department gets its way, the census takers who go door to door in 2020 will be asking a new question, one about citizenship. The change, which has to be decided by the end of March, has far-reaching implications. Whether that question is asked could actually tip the balance of power toward rural areas should non-citizens decline to participate out of fear of acknowledging their status. The Justice Department says it needs the information to assist with enforcement of the Voting Rights Act. Skeptics worry the intent is to produce an undercount of communities with large, undocumented populations. Lawyers at the Commerce Department are evaluating the legal basis for the question. Joining me now, Andrew Beveridge, professor of sociology at Queens College and founder of the demographics website Social Explorer, and Justin Levitt, a professor of law and associate dean for research at Loyola Law School. Justin, the primary responsibility, although the census does a lot of things, is to get a body count. How might that be impacted by this one question?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The 5th sentence of the Constitution, right after it says we have a Congress, right after it says we have a House of Representatives, says the census is supposed to take account of every person in the country. That is job one. And there is a relentless focus on making sure that all of the other things the census does doesn't get in the way of job one, a body count, as you put it. The fear, the concern, is that particularly in this climate, asking additional questions about citizenship could cause people not to respond to the census, and that would produce a serious undercount. It would make the census less accurate, defaulting on the constitutional duty, but also impacting politics around the country in pretty unpredictable ways.
Andrew, everybody has to be counted for the purpose of congressional boundary lines. That's the outcome of the Evanwell case. I don't want people's eyes at home to glaze over. But children and those who might not be citizens need not be counted for state legislative districts. Of course, it's the state legislatures that control the drawing of the maps every 10 years. Is that not the domino effect, then, that could kick in if the citizenship question is asked?
Yes, I think that's right. And I think what will happen is that Evanwell will be revisited
from one state or another, most likely Texas, which seems to be the source of much of the sort of litigation. And quite honestly, this has been going on since the 2010 census, because Vitter and company tried to force citizenship on the 2010 census. And I think they misperceived what would happen with apportionment. But you're absolutely right. Ever since the 14th Amendment, all people in the United States have been counted: women, children, blacks, non-citizens, etc. But I think the sort of the holy grail of this, from a point of view of the Republican redistrictors, is to try to get these people out, because it would radically change lots of districts in all across the country, and it would help the rural areas, but I think it would also help the outer ring suburbs that are largely white, largely citizen, and largely very affluent. Also, retirement areas would have a much better count.
And yet, Justin, perhaps a long-term analysis says it could actually hurt the GOP insofar as some of the fastest growing states are red states. Explain what that might mean.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Andrew's right potentially about the apportionment within states. But going back to the congressional command, the more people a state has and the more people the census counts, the more congressional seats a state has. The South is growing at this point much faster than the North. The upper Midwest is losing population. The South is gaining population, largely from Latinos, citizens and non-citizens alike. And if the census does not accurately count those individuals, Texas isn't going to get as many seats as it otherwise would. Florida isn't going to get as many seats as it otherwise would. Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, those are all states that are either seeking to gain seats, that look to gain seats, or where they're running to stay in place if the census count is accurate. You put this question on the census, and you get a lot of people refusing to respond. That means that the population count is going to be off. It's going to be wrong. And that's also going to mean that these states, Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, will lose seats rather than gain seats. If you're a Republican in Congress looking to hold the Republican majority, you are hoping, you're counting on those seats from Texas and North Carolina and the fast-growing southern states. And if the census count is wrong, those are seats that the Republicans simply will lose.
Though on the other hand,
Andy, who gets to decide? How does this get sorted out?
I think part of it will be decided by the Supreme Court. Part of it will be decided by the not yet appointed director of the Census Bureau, and part of it ultimately is decided by Congress, because Congress eventually, and I think it's in April, decides exactly what questions go on the census. And Justin's absolutely right. It would cut the count in the states of fast-growing immigration, which are, in fact, the southern tier, the Southwest, and to some extent, some of the coastal cities. So it's a very dynamic situation, and if you think about who might wind up on the Supreme Court if Trump sticks it out, this could have a radical effect. According to Michael Schreier, who I talked to, the Republican redistrictors feel they've gone as far as they could go in terms of gerrymandering at this point. And so this is kind of like the next step. What can we do now? We've gone about as far as we could go, and there's a big backlash now about the massively partisan gerrymander that happened after the 2010 census. So it's very possible, if this doesn't go on through, that there will be a swing back and we'll have fairer redistricting going forward.
I think it's a really important issue, complicated. I wanted to make sure it's on everybody's radar screen as the decision is about to be made over at Commerce. Andrew Beveridge, Justin Levitt, thank you. Appreciate your being here.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Reminder, go to smerconish.com. Answer this survey question. More than 2,000 have already done so this hour. Whether informally or under oath, will President Trump ultimately be interviewed by Mueller's team or invoke his Fifth Amendment right? We'll show the results at the end of this hour. Speaking of which, let's check in on some more social media. What do we have? From Twitter. Smerconish, thank you for clarifying census laws. However, there is no sensible reason to know citizenship unless you plan to round up non-citizens for some nefarious activities. Nancy, the Justice Department, let me be devil's advocate, would say that for enforcement of the Voting Rights Act, that's important information for them to have at their disposal. You be the judge. Still to come, when does a small town want to be erased from the map? Well, when it's the popular secret shortcut that's recommended by apps for drivers who are stuck in nearby traffic jams. Find out how officials are combating the congestion caused by Waze and Google Maps.
The finest luxury items at up to 90% off retail. Every item authenticated by our experts. Only at The Real Real. Shop now and get 20% off when you enter REAL at therealreal.com.
Friends, colleagues, gathered here are the world's finest insurance experts. Rodney, mastermind of discounts like Safe Driver, Paperless, the list goes on.
How about a discount for long lists?
Gold. Mara, you save our customers hundreds for switching almost effortlessly. It's a gift. And Jamie.
Present.
Together, we are unstoppable. So, what are we gonna do? Insurance. That's kind of what we do here.
And you ever just feel like life is just catapulting you towards some greater purpose? Just want to save lives.
The 1517 to Paris, rated PG-13.
Let's begin. Yes or no? Do you want the same tools and seamless experience across web and tablet? Do you want $4.95 commissions for stocks, 50-cent options contracts, $1.50 futures contracts? What about a dedicated service team of trading specialists? Did you say yes? Good. Then it's time for Power E-Trade, the platform, price, and service that gives you the edge you need. Looks like we have a couple of seconds left. Let's do some card twirling. Twirling cards. E-Trade, the original place to invest online.
CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for people taking cholesterol-lowering statin drugs. Qunol, with 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10, has the #1 cardiologist-recommended form of CoQ10. Qunol, the better CoQ10.
Any time of year is a bad time if you're an animal who's being abused or neglected. But winter can make the suffering even worse for these animals, many who've been left outside in the cold to die.
The endless suffering, endless pain, just lack of hope. There is no shortage of cruelty out there.
This winter, please help by visiting our website or calling this number and signing up with your $19 monthly donation. Every new donor we get means we can rescue more animals from harm and give them the warmth of loving arms. With your support, they'll get emergency medical care, food, and shelter.
Isn't that good? Get that thing off you?
We need 3,000 new donors in the next 30 days so we can rescue the animals who are fighting to stay alive this winter. 63 cents a day is all it takes to save an animal's life.
It's really the support that comes in from people that care that really is the engine that keeps us going.
Join in the next 10 minutes and we'll send you this free membership kit, including a magazine subscription, an animal photo, and this Animal Champion t-shirt. This is your last chance to get this limited edition item, so act now. It's a season of great suffering for too many animals, and if there was ever a time to help, this is it. Please go online or call now.
Don't wait until February. Walk into a Jackson Hewitt day or night and you could get up to $3,200. So why wait? You could get up to $3,200 with a no-fee refund advance. Go to Jackson Hewitt today.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, let us come